shoot!
Huh? Gotcha!
Down. Let's go! Hey, we did it!
Nice! We're killing it today!
Mic check.
In the not-so-distant future, the Gunpla
All right. Finally, the last live build of the year. Let me go get my other stuff because I am freaking late to the party. So I kind of already ruined the surprise. But what I was going to do when I started was I was going to be like, Janela! Because that was going to be the next, I should say the last build of the year. But something surprising happened. Man, little choked up right there. That site came back in the clutch to win. I was shocked. I thought I was going to be building Jamoa this week. But that's not what happened at all. So yes, today we're not building Jamoa. That just got beat in the clutch. We are building today Death Site, which is backwards. I just realized that. There we go. Oh, that's damn. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. Adjust that real quick. But yes, we are building the Gundam Death Side today. For the last build of the year, which actually is one I wanted to build, Gundam Death Side. But the other reason why I'm doing this today too is because something really good happened. I had an issue yesterday with chat. Basically, I got called out for reading chat. And today, I officially fixed that problem. I don't know if I can get it in screen, but I'll do it real quick. Oh, please don't fall over. Feels like it's about to fall over. You see that? Hold on. Oops. You see that? Bet you don't know what that is. That is so now I can read chat with no issues. I call it, which you can't see it on your end, chat poll. So now I would never have an issue. Well, I may have some issue, like if I'm not in the room, but I can officially now read chat with no problems. I have no more excuses. Sorry about that. Somebody hitting me up. But yes. So that's why I'm doing this so early. Because I need to test this thing out. So in a way, this is a test stream. But the good news is that yes, I can finally actually build. Oh. So yeah, I almost broke my neck right there. I can actually finally build with no issues. I can read chat. It's right in front of my face. I can see what all of you are saying. I know you can't see it, but I can see it. There's no more excuses. And what's even better, which I realized now that I have the screen here. Oh, hold on. I gotta move this over too. Moving this over. Boom. Even if I want to bring up, like, let's say if I bring up YouTube, right here. I know y'all can't see it, but for me, it's pretty cool. Gotta find it though. Oh, is that it? Where's it at? Boom. I can now move my interactions in right here. So now I can actually see it. And I ain't gotta break my neck having to see what's going on now. Which I freaking love. I can do it with that one. Boom. Do the same with this one. Oh, okay. So no matter what, I'm gonna have to move it over, which is fine. Oh, what's that going on? Uh-oh. Okay, I guess we're not fully fine. Oh, that's why I got on the wrong one. Close that out. Boom. Honey. Boom. There we go. Alright. Should work now. Yep, there it goes. Boom. Ah, oh, so beautiful. It actually works. So the only issue is that the freaking, I wish I had a back, but it doesn't have a back. Yeah, you see, I hate that it does that.
Let's try to do this with a commercial voice.
That's what I care about.
Come on down and try our new pizzas and our burgers.
Either way, we
and
streaming
our hot
today.
dogs,
We building. We building for the last time this year.
And Oreo.
My headphones are not. No. Okay. Ooh. Oh crap! The power cable needs to be fixed. I should get an extension cable. Oh, now it wants to work. Although that's not what I was looking for. Whew. But before we get into this, let me go ahead. Let's build. And remember, I am live streaming once a week, every week, for sure. She's not getting as many videos as you should. But we're gonna open this up real quick. Oh, what the heck? No. Oh my god, it's so cool to see the chat be fixed. I'm looking at it right in front of my face right now. And again, I don't know if anybody's going to show up today, but this is my test for today. You know what? I don't know, I'm making this harder than it has to be. I don't know, it's harder than it has to be. Hopefully next year, I want to get some God Hands nippers because I've heard good things about it. And I've always been using these, so that's going to be my next purchase for next year. But let's go ahead. Oh, that was supposed to go down there. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's get started. There you are. Focus. There you go. See the box? I know I'm a little fast, but there you go. I gotta throw that away. Oh, this might be a fast one. Good. Good. Oh yeah, this might be quick. Alright, cool. Alright. Let's go ahead and get started. Put it on our beat, hope. Oh yeah, it's gonna be quick. This reminds me about the old one, but better. So y'all can see it. Move it out the way. First runners. All right. Let's go secondary. And of course, with these videos, we always do reactions, so we're gonna watch some YouTube videos that are going on. Oops, that dropped out. Alright. Now we got it. Now we good. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. What's the trash can? Oh, ooh. And my bad about the glare. You have to deal with that right now, but it's fine. Alright. So, because I don't want to wait, so I'm testing this out. We're going to go ahead and where you at? Oh, this is so convenient. I'm not gonna lie, this is so convenient.
They don't love you like I love you. Wait, they don't love you like I love you. Espera, ellos no te aman como yo te amo. Espera, ellos no te aman como yo te amo.
Is there any good stuff? Nothing good. Oh! Nah, is there anything good? I already saw that. Okay, you know what? I know what we're gonna do. Because this wants to be there we go. Alright, forget it. Alright. We're just gonna have to go through my videos as usual. Boom.
Introducing the Anchor Prime charging station.
Ooh.
Fast charging for your desktop.
Too bad we can't watch that.
The early
I watched
90s
that
was a
last stream.
dope time for Mega Man. With the last four main... 1987, Capcom blesses us with the first Mega Man, beginning a franchise that would become bigger than anyone expected.
Too close.
Then in 1993, the team decided it was time for an extreme...
In 2001, Norihiro Yagi released the first chapter of his third manga, which would eventually become his magnum dom.
Alright, we'll
but
watch
despite
it.
its many accomplishments, Claymore always has to play second fiddle to that other long-running dark fantasy manga. Everyone always wants to talk about Berserk, but what about its little sister? Is there no more love for Emoto's and Biden's America? Well, now that Patriots are in control, Kino will be discussed. There's an anime and a manga. We'll tackle them in that order so you can see more of the anime, and because that way I don't have to edit as much. Production stuff, plot summary, spoilers, and a review.
Okay.
That is what you've signed up for. Alright, let's do it. Intro over. In 2007... Madhouse, hot off the heels of Death Note, Black Lagoon, and a shoujo I'm not watching anytime soon because if this hits 30%, my friends aren't going to talk to me anymore, adapted the still ongoing Claymore manga into a 26-episode anime series. I'll go ahead and spoil the surprise and tell you this does have an anime-only ending, but it's one that had the seal of approval from Norihiro Yagi, the manga author. Madhouse made sure to involve him in the anime's development to make sure the show felt like the manga, but Yagi was surprisingly open-minded about change. Since he hadn't finished up the manga yet, he told them they could end it however they wished. Even though Madhouse got the green light, the ending to the Claymore anime, while original, still ended in a way that allowed them to keep going in the future and be pretty faithful to the source material. I mean, they'd need a handful of anime-only episodes to connect certain things, and they'd either have to forget certain other developments or try to reincorporate them in the future, but a continuation could happen any day now. On an island continent divided into 47 districts, terrifying demons infiltrate towns and cities to feast on human guts. These creatures are called Yoma, and they have enormous strength and can even shapeshift into everyday people. When they devour—
I don't know if anybody ever seen this series, but yeah, this series is actually pretty tight. I freaking love this series. It's a good one. Wait, what? No, okay, that's too soon.
Their first victim, they not only take their appearance, but also their memories. This makes it almost impossible to identify who's a Yoma and who's not. That's why each district has a silver-eyed witch who can easily detect Yoki, the demonic energy which flows through the Yoma. These mysterious all-female warriors belong to an even more mysterious male-run organization. Internally, these ladies are labeled with numbers, but the common folk call them all by the name of the imposing weapon they wield, Claymore. Besides the silver eyes, Claymores also have blonde hair and wear all white. But like with all seemingly pure girls, what's underneath might disturb you. We'll save that for later. Claire is one of these 47 Claymores on a mission to deal with demons in her district. She meets a little hag-pilled rascal named Rocky in a village where a Yoma has been killing someone every few days. Most of the people in the village, like most of my core audience, are totally scared of these ladies, but Rocky finds her intriguing and shows her around town despite her unpleasant demeanor. After a hard day on the love quest, he heads back home and finds out the Yoma Claire's looking for is actually his brother, who just ate his uncle and is about to eat him as well. But right before he gets eaten, Claire bursts through the ceiling and saves him, and then leaves just as quickly as she came. Rocky tags along since there's nothing left for him in the village. Also, they kicked him out because if his brother was a Yoma, then, he could be too. He's not, and Claire would have told him if he was, but these people are just too scared to see reason. Claire initially tells him to get lost, but the kid is just too persistent, so she keeps him on as her personal cook to keep him from getting himself killed. The two travel together with no real destination. Claire goes—
Like I said, I actually did like this series. This was actually a pretty good series. I don't know if we'll watch the whole entire thing, but we'll at least watch some of this. At least maybe the first 20 minutes. Oh, shoot. Ah! That's not supposed to happen.
Wherever the organization tells her to go.
Oh, wow,
they
okay.
encounter many Yoma, as you might expect, but also a Claymore who's gone past her limit and will soon turn into a Yoma. You see, these lovely ladies are actually pretty nasty on the inside. They were orphaned little girls who were taken in by the organization and experimented on, cut open, and filled with the flesh of Yoma so that they would become half Yoma themselves. This allows them to use Yoki to enhance their physical abilities, but it comes at a cost. They use too much at any given time, it's game over. They'll go from half Yoma to full Yoma and be hunted down by the organization. Claymores can also tell when they're about to hit their limit, so when the time comes, they can choose their own executioner by sending the black card inside their swords to the person they want to deal the death blow. Claire receives one such card from an old friend, and though Rocky begs her not to go through with it, Claire pushes him off without a word and does her job.
Yep.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube and video downloads. So you can watch cooking shows as you eat airplane food. Try 1 month free.
That's right.
Now, Vatican II quite explicitly condemns euthanasia, so Claire's gotta go to church. The holy city of Rabanno is home to the grandest cathedral in all the continent. However, they don't like claymores. But when a Yoma infiltrates the church and starts eating people inside the cathedral, one of the priests sends a request to the organization for help. Claire needs to kill the demon, but since the city views her as a demon too, she takes some pills to suppress her Yoki, which lets her blend in. This does make it more difficult for her to track down her target, but luckily the monster isn't very subtle. However, she nearly dies protecting her persecutors and the Yoma gets away. She sleeps off her stabbing and tells the priest it's high time to do away with discretion. They line everybody up in the cathedral and Claire scans each one of them to see if they're human or a Jesuit. But when Claire finishes scanning every person in the room, she realizes none of them are Yoma. And the reason for that is because the Yoma has been hiding out in a coffin in the off-limits baptismal area, which of course is where Rocky happens to be hanging out. Claire and the others make it in time, and once the Claymore whips out her namesake, which had been stored in a hollowed-out statue carried by Rocky, she finally kills the Yoma. But the battle took too high a toll on her. She ended up using too much Yoki and now can't stop herself from turning into the very thing she just killed. She asked the guards to kill her while she's still human, but just like with the other Claymore who asks the same thing, Rocky begs Claire not to go through with this. Again, she doesn't listen. She's made up her mind. She needs to die here. She needs to stay human. So Rocky decides to die with her. All he wanted to do was help her and be by her side. He's already lost everything he cared about. His family's dead, his village threw him out. He's got nowhere to go and nothing to live for. So if this is it for Claire, then this is it for him too. Yep. That's when something happens. Or rather, something doesn't happen. Claire stays human. She knows she went past her limit, but for whatever reason, she was able to come back. Truly, nothing ever happens. But believe it or not, something did happen once before. A long time ago, back when Claire was just a little lass. She met a claymore named Teresa who was tall, fair, and strong. Stronger than anyone else by far. They only happened to meet by chance when Teresa dispatched with a group of Yoma hiding out in a village. Claire had been the plaything of one of these Yoma, and once she was freed, she wanted to stay by her savior's side. However, Teresa was a career woman through and through, so she wasn't interested in kids. But just like with Rocky, Claire is persistent, and eventually, Teresa starts to warm up to this cute little nuisance after traveling together with her for a while. However, Teresa is still a claymore at the end of the day, which is a very dangerous line of work, and certainly no place for a child. So after clearing out some Yoma in a nearby town, she leaves Claire in the company of a lovely elderly couple. Unfortunately, now that the surrounding Yoma have all been defeated, the town was ripe for a raiding. By the time Teresa realizes this and returns...
Be careful. You see, I already freaking cut myself already messing around. Look, do it. There we go. I didn't break skin, but I already cut myself. God, that sucks. I mean, I broke skin, but I didn't go through. I didn't catch no blood, so.
To rescue Claire, the place is engulfed in flame, and most of the inhabitants are already dead. But not Claire, she's still alive, although she is a slave now. This upsets Teresa. Now, I need to mention that claymores are strictly forbidden from killing humans. It's a hard, fast rule with no exceptions. Any claymore who breaks this rule will be executed by the organization. So Teresa breaks the rule and kills pretty much everyone, even the leader of the raiders who thought he was the main character and died in like 5 seconds. But a man from the organization watched the whole thing unfold, so Teresa is officially condemned as a traitor and scheduled for execution. Most claymores are good little girls who will just turn themselves in and let justice be served. But Teresa, she isn't like the other claymores. She's always been a bit of a troublemaker, someone who's too smart for her own good. And also, she's the strongest claymore of all time. But that's not why she rebels this time. Teresa, for all of her life, never had anything to live for. She was just a weapon for the organization, and she didn't have a problem with that until she met Claire. Now, she's got something to live for. So when it comes time for her execution, she decides to live. She and Claire go on the run, and the top 5 claymores, excluding Teresa of course, are sent after them. They manage to track down the former number 1 and launch an all-out attack, but despite having the numbers and plenty of skill, Teresa is just too powerful. The only claymore who stands a chance against her is the new number 2, Priscilla, a rookie who just signed up the other day who only the former number 2, Elena, seems to know about. Her raw power is terrifying. She's as dangerous as she is ditzy.
Oh,
but
yeah,
even she's bested by Teresa. However, Teresa doesn't kill her. She recognizes that Priscilla will be stronger than her at some point and that it's best to nip this thing in the bud, but she shows mercy instead, something the old her would never do. It's only because she's met Claire that she's changed her disposition.
Oh, yeah,
Frustrated at how a claymore would go against the sole organization which exists to slay Yoma, Priscilla unleashes her Yoki in a righteous rage and starts her attack up once more. But because she's still a rookie, she doesn't know her own limits. She goes over the edge and starts transforming into a Yoma, begging Teresa to kill her, to end her life while her heart is still human. And Teresa obliges. She takes a step towards this scared and confused girl, and Priscilla takes her hands off with a single slash. And before Teresa has any time to process what just happened, Priscilla slashes once more and takes her head.
Yep. Alright. Okay, there you go. That's all you get. I realize we're getting into spoilers territory, but yep. Freaking love Claymore. It's such a good series. Such a good series. And boom. Torso's done. Should I do the head now? Yeah, I might do that. Yeah, I might not. I'll do it in order. I think I watched this one before, but why not? Let's go to an oldie and goodie.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory. Whether it's work, school, or just a tough day, you can always count on us to be the mental E-tank that keeps your energy maxed out. Today we're going old school to talk about a franchise that no one cares about, least of all Capcom themselves. Well, least of all might be an exaggeration. Probably the entity that cares the least about this franchise is the YouTube algorithm. Ain't nobody seeing this video. Anyway, today we're talking about Lego Man, or more specifically, his villain, Dr. Wily.
Dr. Wily.
Dr. Wily.
Dr. Wily.
Sure, whatever he said. But today we're not covering the usual Dr. Wily is actually the hero of these games. In part because I already did that theory. No, friends, far from it. Today, it's my goal to convince you that despite being beaten over and over and over and over and over again in this franchise, Wily is the one that ultimately comes out on top. In the Mega Man series, you lose. The bad guy wins, and humanity suffers big time. Ladies, gentlemen, and beloved household appliances, strap into your Rust Jet and get those busters a-charging. We're about to ruin Mega Man. Before digging into this theory too much, it's important to...
Technically, he's right. Technically, he is right.
Recognize that the Mega Man timeline is essentially broken into 4 main chunks: Mega Man Classic, Mega Man X, Mega Man 0 and ZX, as well as Mega Man Legends. Except there's a twist here. As early as the first game of the series, there's something deeper at work. You can actually see Wily learning, growing, evolving in his techniques, creating a massive character arc that spreads through a huge chunk of the Mega Man series. And if you read between the lines throughout the course of Mega Man Classic to Mega Man Legends, you'll soon see that after years and years of defeat, Wily accepts his death as an inevitability. He begins developing ways to keep his conscience alive, and he eventually succeeds in destroying all of humanity. Wily doesn't just win by the end of the series, he dominates. And how do we know all that? Well, it all starts with the OG Mega Man on the NES. Throughout all of the classic games, we watch as Wily learns and steals from his rival, Dr. Light. It's never told to us explicitly, but rather it's much more subtle storytelling happening through the increasingly complicated development of Wily's robot masters. Using the Japanese manual for Mega Man 1, Dr. Light receives news stating, quote, "The robots you developed are going out of control, one after the other. At this rate, robots will take over humankind." Of course, Light has no idea what the message is referring to, but quickly makes the connection that Dr. Wily modified the robots that he developed. So when the series starts, Wily is forced to steal Dr. Light's robots to achieve his ends. And even though he ends up losing, the experience was useful, because by the next game, Wily has actually figured out how to build his own evil robots. In the 1991 Rockman character collection, we're told by Dr. Light, it seems he's somehow managed to complete 8 of his own combat robots, and thus begins a pattern. Wily is constantly losing, but also improving himself based on the events from the previous game. In Mega Man 3, we see in the 3rd castle stage that Wily's progressed to creating his own rudimentary Mega Man clones. These Mega clones make a nice blueprint for him to build upon, leading us to Mega Man 5 and the introduction of the Dark Man series. Unlike other robot masters who are named based around a certain function, Dark Man is the name given to 4 different robots, with only Roman numerals differentiating between them. These guys are particularly interesting as they mimic Dr. Wily's growth in the most literal way. Darkman 1 has tank treads and represents Dr. Wily's early and inexperienced robot development. Darkman 2 has legs, more complicated on the movement side, and electromagnetic shields, but no Buster. Darkman 3 is all Buster, no shield, and Darkman 4 combines shield and firearms and legs in an effort to mimic Proto Man. Across the 4 stages of Wily's castle in Mega Man 5, we see the evil doctor's design process becoming more and more sophisticated, from tank treads to one of the hardest fights that you'll encounter in the classic series. Unless, of course, you have Beat the Bird, in which case it's a bit of a cakewalk. Mega Man 7, though, is where we see all of this learning come together as he reveals his version of Mega Man and Rush, the robots, Bass, and Treble. Mega Man 7 is also noteworthy because this is where we start to see the Doctor's changing mindset. Up until this point in the series, he's only been focused on creating the strongest robot. But this time is the first time that we see Wily truly create a failsafe in the event that his plans crumble. At the end of 6, Wily is jailed, but expecting this, he programs his lab to boot up and push out 4 robot masters in the event that it's left undisturbed for 6 months. And this becomes a staple from this point forward in the series. Wily has backup plans. He stops building for the now, and he starts building for the future. Now, I'm no doctor, but to me this seems like the kind of shift in behavior from someone that's beginning to realize that they don't have forever to reach their ambitions. Following Mega Man 8,
must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man.
We have the fan named Mega Man 8.5, or
oh, jeez, the voice acting. Shout out, which we saw at last live stream. Mega Man X4, one of my favorite games. I actually got that game technically. I mean, I got it. Oh, wait a minute. Am I expecting something right now? I think so.
Mega Man title that stayed in Japan until the release of it on the Game Boy Advance in 2003. In this game, we see 2 major events: Bass rebelling against Wily, and Wily brainwashing his own creations, which should be redundant, right? Why brainwash the things that you yourself are creating? But Bass's betrayal in this game shows us exactly why Wily's pursuing this. Wily is learning that robots, to be truly powerful, have to have free will, but that free will comes at a cost, them turning on you. As such, he needs to either A, get robots to willingly follow him, or B, assert his own will in more subtle, underhanded ways. And in the next few games, we see exactly that. In Mega Man 9, he targets robots that are slated for termination, and what he tells them isn't unlike the way that he sees the world himself. Quote, "You work hard for humans, and then they destroy you when you're no longer needed. Just because you reach some arbitrary expiration date doesn't mean you should be scrapped." And the robots are convinced. They willingly follow him. The plan doesn't work, of course, but it's interesting because it reflects Wily's mindset at this point. Like we said, he's planning for the future. He knows that he won't be around forever, just like the aging robots. And so his focus is about what's coming next, prolonging his own life. Which segues to Mega Man 10 and Wily's most important scheme in all of the classic franchise, the creation of the Robo-Enza virus. At first, symptoms of this virus are pretty much what you'd expect from a robot version of the flu, but after a few months, the infected robots become dangerous, with the following text displayed on screen. The infected robots turn violent and attempt to take over the world. Violence? Okay, that's fine, I would expect that, but take over the world? It's a very specific behavior. There's only one person in all of the Mega Man series so far that's expressed interest in this sort of goal. 1. What we see with Robo-Enza is a prototype Wily virus, a way to preserve his life's goal, a way to preserve a piece of himself after he dies. But it needs more development. After he's defeated in Mega Man 11, the latest game in the series and likely the last time that we see these characters alive, he makes the oddly bold claim, "My plans have only just begun." He's got something else in the works, which brings us to the X series, where everyone in the classic series has long since passed away. So what was Wily's ace in the hole here? Well, since the early 90s, it's been theorized that Zero, the super advanced red robot with a laser sword, was a Wily creation. A robot designed to be the perfect Mega Man killer. There was even this incredibly fun fan game named Mega Man Unlimited that bridged the gap in the story, showing Zero as Wily's final and most prized and most violent work, the culmination of all his experiences up to that point. Now, none of this was ever officially stated, especially in the games, but it was always very, very heavily implied. And finally, 2 years ago, during Rockman Unite, a 30th anniversary event celebrating the franchise, we were given a look at an official design document from Mega Man X1 way back in 1993, confirming that Capcom intended all of this from the start. Zero is Wily's robot. But how does this help us with the theory? Well, it's simple. Did you catch the peculiar note under the Zero project? Wily dies at the same time Zero is completed, and yet Zero is in stasis when he's discovered almost 100 years later. It's presumed that Zero was sealed off because he was too violent to be controlled, but an all-powerful berserk robot kills their creator and takes a nap for 100 years? It doesn't make sense. Now, you'll notice another branch on this flowchart, Wily's Robot Virus project, the evolution of his Roboenza plan from Mega Man 10. We know from that game that he was infusing elements of himself, his plans for world domination, into early versions of that virus. So we know Wily injecting his will into a virus and thus infecting robots isn't all that far-fetched. And though the chart says Wily died before the virus was completed, remember, this is from very early in the design process for these games. In Mega Man Power Fighters 2, Wily alludes to something much different. With this robot and my other project complete, the world will be mine. It all leads to one conclusion. The virus, quite literally, is Dr. Wily, his consciousness or his will or something like that. It's infused into Zero and Zero's stasis pod, waiting to be unleashed onto the world. Now, that may seem like a stretch, but consider this. In a cutscene of X4, we see the classic Wily W flash across Zero's forehead just before good guy Sigma shatters it with his giant Reploidy fist. Zero is taken to the mechanic, and when he wakes, he's totally cool. He's a changed robot. But you know who suddenly has a taste for violence? Sigma. Wily, via the virus, has passed from Zero to Sigma. I know that the flowchart says that Zero being built to be bad is made good by the evil virus, and so the two negatives equal a positive, but that seems, well, it seems kinda dumb. If that were truly the case, then why would the switch from bad to good in Zero happen with Sigma smashing the crystal on his head, the housing point of the Wily virus? And likewise, why would Sigma, the good guy, suddenly become the big bad shortly after this moment? It's as though the Wily consciousness is transferred between these two robots, or that Zero housed a more concentrated version of the Wily virus that got passed on to Sigma. And yes, as an aside, I know in Mega Man X5, Sigma alludes to meeting an old man that's likely Wily, but that wouldn't make sense with anything else established elsewhere in the series, and is more likely him either referring to visions of Wily or potentially our next big villain of Dr. Wile. Anyway, from there, the virus comes to be known by many names and evolves throughout the X series, from the Maverick virus to the Sigma virus to the Zero virus, but in reality, it was always Wily's virus. For further proof, just look at Sigma's behavior once he gets infected. In X2, Sigma attempts to rebuild Zero, who's good now, to fight against X. He's reprogramming a good robot to join the bad guys. Sounds exactly like what Wily did back in Mega Man 1. In Mega Man X3, Dr. Doppler's the main bad guy, only to be revealed later that he was being manipulated by Sigma. It's a direct parallel to Wily's plan with Dr. Cossack in Mega Man 4. Sigma, throughout the series, is recycling Wily's old plans, as if he's the same guy playing by the same old playbook. But okay, in this theory I promised to show that Wily wins. How does that happen? Well, from this point forward, Wily, through Sigma and the virus, plunges the world into a constant state of war. Cities are destroyed, space stations fall to Earth, thousands of human and robot lives are lost at the hands of this robot war. Wily, through his final two actions of creating Zero and a robovirus, sends the world into hundreds of years of bloodshed. In order to defeat the virus once and for all, scientists resort to using Zero's body to create a sort of antibody. This Sigma antibody program using Zero results in the creation of what comes to be called the Mother Elf. This elf destroys the virus once and for all and ends the Maverick Wars. Hooray, hurrah! It would seem that Wily's influence has come to an end, except for one problem. The elf gets corrupted by another evil scientist named Dr. Wile. No relation. Or is there? There isn't really, as far as I can tell. And this sends the world into yet another series of wars, the Elf Wars, which is the plot of the Mega Man Zero series. And who's responsible for those Elf Wars? Zero himself. So much so that the original Zero exiles himself away multiple times. There are even clones of him made to become some of the most threatening murder bots on the planet. These wars, which last 4 years and ultimately are only happening because Zero the robot is a thing that exists, end up being more destructive than the Maverick Wars, resulting in 90% of Reploids and 60% of all humans on Earth being killed. And all of it, again, is tying back to Wily's creation of Zero and the virus.
All right,
Humanity
finish the
needed a
head.
cure for the virus. They used Zero, and everything went to heck. All of it creating...
Stickers takes too long to freaking do this crap. Jeez. All right, let's keep going.
chaos hundreds of years after his death. There's also the ZX series mixed in there where the lines between human and robot get super blurry due to biometals, but that's kind of a side point here. Anyway, all this destruction on Earth from the various wars, coupled with a massive flood, eventually forces humanity to have to retreat to safety in space, where we enter the final phase of the Mega Man timeline, Mega Man Legends, set thousands of years after the ZX titles. In Legends, we meet the Master, the last of the original humans.
Do not forget, the Master is the only true human remaining.
Beyond him, every other human in existence is either dead or has been fused together with biometal robot parts to create what are known as carbons. We eventually watch as the Master dies, meaning that the final, purely human character in this universe is dead. That leads us to the main choice of the game, the one Mega Man is tasked with in the ending of Legends 2. Does Mega Man allow carbons to continue living and leave humanity dead, or does he activate a system that eliminates all carbons so humanity can be reborn once more?
The carbon reinitialization program was meant to be run only after the Master and all other humans have died. It uses their genetic codes to clone new humans.
Mega Man decides to fulfill his master's wishes and let the carbons live. And with that, humanity is, and remains, completely extinguished. By the end of the Mega Man timeline, the last human has died, and there are no plans for recovery. Thanks to the actions of Wily, the human race is extinct. It took him over 3,000 years to do it, but he won. And it was all because the Robot Institute of Technology chose to go with Dr. Light rather than Dr. Wily's proposal. Talk about a butterfly effect, huh? From petty squabbles and stealing robots to turning himself into a freaking virus that prompts multiple wars, the extermination of millions, and the human race having to evacuate into space where they eventually die out. Without this feud between Dr. Light and Dr. Wily in college, none of it would have happened. The conflict between the two doctors ignited the beginning of the end. Wily's final solution of making Zero and the virus had ripple effects that were felt thousands of years after his death. Just goes to show that in the end, despite everything Dr. Light did to keep Wily's evil at bay, it only prolonged the inevitable. Quite frankly, only made things worse. Dr. Wily's plan at the end of Mega Man 11 really was the ticket for a one-way trip to extinction. And to rub it in even more, Mega Man Legends 2 ends with Mega Man stuck in space with no way to get home. So he even succeeds in taking the blue bomber out of the equation. Talk about killing two birds with one stone. So theorists, do yourself a favor and keep all that in mind the next time you and your overeager friend are applying for research grants. Step on their toes too much and they just might end up destroying the human race. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Ooh, and if you want to see some really old cringy content, we've only actually done one other episode on Mega Man. If you want to watch that one, it's old. I haven't watched it in a long time, so I make no promises, but it's there. It's linked on screen. Chances are, if you only watch our new episodes, you've never seen this one, so strap in for a good time. Also, hit the subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Woo. Alright, we did Mega Man last one. Let's do a different franchise. No. Nah. We'll do a different franchise. Let's see what else we have going on. What else is going on that we can check out? We already watched that one last time. No, that's too early. Can't watch that one. I wish we could watch the movie. Oh, you know what? such a good series. Oh. Sure. Let's watch some Angry Video Game Nerd. Let's check this one out. Why not? Alright, what's next?
The summer is here, and with it comes a slew of new potential blockbusters to see. While there's plenty that are only in the theaters, some movies are coming to streaming, like Beverly Hills Cop 4. Yeah! But what if something's not available in your country? Thankfully, ExpressVPN's got your back. ExpressVPN is an app that knocks down the barriers surrounding the streaming content that apps like Disney Plus and Netflix hide from you based on your geolocation. Using ExpressVPN, simply switch your location to another country like Canada, and at the snap of a finger, the movies and shows you've been hunting for shall reveal themselves. And with over 100 countries worldwide to choose from, whether you're looking for over-the-top action movies like The Expendables 4 only streaming in the Netherlands, or stuff like Nicolas Cage's take on Dracula in Renfield only showing in Australia, ExpressVPN will always help you find exactly what you're looking for, and all in crystal clear high definition without any buffering. I use it all the time, and I think you're going to love it too. Find out how you can get yourself an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free by going to expressvpn.com/cinemassacre or by clicking the link in my description below. What is a video game? What purpose does it serve? Well, I think a video game is meant to grant you a certain type of control and power over a make-believe situation, perhaps to compensate for the control and power that you lack in your daily life. Okay, maybe they got too philosophical too soon, but the game I'm talking about here is a bit more intellectual than what I'd normally review. But if you've seen my reviews of Earthbound and Final Fantasy VI, you'll know that the Super Nintendo classics are something that I hold sacred and are a prime era of nostalgia for me. The first time I saw Sim City was in the holy pages of that gaming Bible we call Nintendo Power, the scripture of Volume 28, page 74. The power of creation is
one of my
yours,
favorite.
saith Nintendo. You are bestowed...
SimCity is not one of my favorite games, but... It's not one of my favorites. Never really has been one of my favorite games, but... I do remember... I remember playing it for the first time as a kid on PC. That's my first time playing SimCity. And the only thing I wanted to do, and it was just too hard to build cities, but man, it was fun to destroy completed ones.
The ability to construct your very own city from the ground up and populate it with people. I had never yet heard of such a game before, where instead of playing the role of a space cadet, a marine, a vampire slayer, a sword-wielding hero, or a Koopa-stomping plumber, you are the mayor of a city. Of course, SimCity was originally on PC, published by Maxis, but then it got Nintendo-fied, and that's when I took notice. The Super Nintendo version, to me, is one of the greatest 16-bit games, and it was also one of the North American launch titles, along with Super Mario World, F-Zero, Pilot Wings, and Gradius 3. What an amazing variety to kickstart a new era of gaming. SimCity has its origins in strategy-based games like Utopia on the Intellivision. Yeah, it's come a long way. And even to this day, with the amount of sim games that exist, SimCity might seem a bit antiquated. However, I don't think its simple charm has ever been surpassed. The reason may have something to do with the intuitive, friendly nature of it, the cartoonish aesthetics, the green-haired Don King guy, Dr. Wright, who acts as your personal advisor, and the relaxing music, which puts you in a meditational, thinking mood. The music goes through several changes. As your city builds up and the population increases,
Real quick,
the music progresses toward a more...
I already know this is better because before, if you go check out the original one, these, I know what they're going to be, were stickers. Freaking love that they did this.
Urgent, industrial, workforce, get shit done kind of feel. It starts as a village, then a town, a city, a capital, and a metropolis, which is the furthest I've ever made it. But if your population reaches 500,000, you advance to something even greater, a megalopolis. Only in the pages of Nintendo Power and the Super Nintendo Player's Guide had I ever seen images of that fabled Mario statue, which would become your prize. That would be the ultimate achievement, something to brag about. All the ladies would want to fuck you. You got a goddamn Mario statue in Sim City. But it ain't happening. Yeah, I've always wanted that statue ever since the magazine taunted me. All my life I've been nothing, but I'll show what a nerd is really worth. I will raise my population and create a civilization that will rival the world!
Find the best holiday gifts on Amazon. Woo! Woo! Save on toys, home, and more. Woo! Woo! Shop great deals now on Amazon. Woo!
Get ready, Southern California. The biggest ski and snowboard expo event of the year is back. Ski Dazzle Winter Expo and Sale is hitting the Los Angeles Convention Center on December 6th, 7th, and 8th. For 3 days only, get lift ticket offers, win big prizes, and see expert seminars. Grab amazing deals on top brand gear and clothing, all up to 70% off. Free expert boot fitting and personal shoppers. Spend over $300 at the $1 Million Sale and your parking is on us. Don't miss out on this. Ski Dazzle is your ultimate kickoff to SoCal's winter season. One-stop shopping, non-stop fun.
Hey man, hold on. Wait a second, hold on. This is right?
The first thing you need to do is select a landform. If you really want to maximize that population, you don't want there to be too much water because obviously you can only build on the ground. Those rivers cut through your city and mess up your whole strategy, so you need to tell that water to go fuck off. But finding the right landform is a chore in itself because there's 1,000 of them to choose from. I'm not kidding. You can see right there, counting landform 0, there are 1,000. You think that's enough? And each one takes about 10 seconds to load. You'll never have time to see all the choices, let alone remember and compare them. Imagine if you started up Mario Kart and there were so many courses to pick you couldn't even look through them all. No sane person in the world has ever laid eyes on every landform in SimCity. Well, at least one. About 10 years ago, someone who was a real trooper actually did it. A YouTuber named 316 What Ups. Thank you again for your service. We now know it takes 3 hours and 14 minutes to click through every landform in SimCity. And that's if you're not stopping to look at any of them. What were they thinking? When you start building, you have a budget to work with, so you need to spend wisely. Anyone would expect you're going to need houses, roadways, a power source, police and fire departments, all the necessities that would seem like common sense. And though it kind of functions like a real city, it is of course only a video game. Some things don't make sense, like how come there's a population count when all I've built so far are commercial and industrial zones? Where are those people living? Not to mention, when the game starts, the year is supposed to be 1900, and the first thing I build is a nuclear power plant. Certain logic doesn't apply, because logic is for pussies. You have to tile the land with a proper balance of 3 different zoning districts: residential, commercial, and industrial. These areas develop on their own. The residential zones, for example, become neighborhoods and then grow into skyscrapers. Other times they become schools or hospitals, which happens automatically at random. All zones need to be connected to a power plant, either by electrical lines or by touching each other in a chain effect. One of the main problems is pollution, which generally comes from the power plants and industrial zones. You can buy a nuclear power plant for cleaner energy, but that costs more money. There also needs to be some kind of transit system like roads, but that causes traffic and more pollution, so you can build railways instead, but again, more expensive. Another big problem is crime, so you need to put police stations all over. Why does the police radius need to be so extreme? The amount of crime in SimCity rivals RoboCop's Detroit. One way to gauge the issues is to look at the public poll. The citizens will tell you how well they think you're doing as mayor and what they think the biggest problems are. Then you can decide how you want to allot your funds to address those problems. For example, they say traffic is bad, so I build more roads. Then they demand a stadium, so I build a stadium, which makes more traffic. So I demolish the roads and replace them with railways, and then they find something else to complain about.
I hit the wrong thing. Freaking love that they did this. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy, but I need to speed up this build.
out. Every now and then, Dr. Wright appears, who, by the way, is named after SimCity creator Will Wright. He gives you advice and sometimes just comes in to compliment you that everything's going all right. He congratulates you on reaching a new population level, awards you with fun little zoning districts like an amusement park, a zoo, and even your very own house as mayor. But if things are going wrong, he'll let you know that pollution is high, crime is rampant, or if there's a disaster. This could be fire, flood, plane crash, tornado, earthquake, or Bowser attack. In the original PC version, it was a Godzilla-type monster, but Nintendo just couldn't resist. It had to be Bowser. You have the option of playing entire scenarios where you have to solve these disasters. They're based on real cities like San Francisco, Boston, Rio de Janeiro, etc. And of course, the problem in Tokyo is the monster. If you beat all 6 scenarios, you'll have to handle UFO attacks in Las Vegas. But back to the task at hand. I want to raise the population to 500,000 and get that Mario statue. You're going to need money, not just to build stuff, but to maintain roadways and stuff. So where does that money come from? From taxing the citizens. But if you raise the taxes too high, they get upset. So you lower them, but then the roads start crumbling. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Either you run out of money or people leave your city. So that's where the cheat code comes in. Ever since I saw it in that player's guide, it became mandatory. At the end of the year, when the tax screen pops up, hold L, leave the screen, come back, make sure funding levels are at 100%, and then, if you release L at the right time, now you have $999,999. Yeah, that'll be enough to keep you going. Now you can build almost infinitely. All the nuclear plants, airports, seaports, and as many stadiums as the citizens want. Nothing can stop you now. However, it still doesn't get you the megalopolis of 500,000 people. That you're going to have to earn by building strategically. So if I'm going to do this, I just have to do it. There's 3 methods I'd say to build your city. The first is the noob method, which is just to place your zones and draw a line of roads and power lines. It's fine. You'll still have fun, but the growth potential is very limited.
The nature of our enemy is unclear now. What do you want us to do about it? Protect us.
Unlock the Vault Edition today.
This isn't fitness equipment. This is an investment in you. Shop treadmills up to 50% off. Ellipticals and bikes starting at $5.99. Save on massage chairs. This is more than a fitness store. Visit us today. Johnson Fitness and Wellness.
The second way is the smart method. This is where you pack all your zones together so everything's touching. You group them together in these blocks with your transit system going around. An alternative to this method is leaving a space in the middle of the blocks. Some call this the donut strategy, where you fill in the holes with all those special properties like the banks, casinos, etc. This promotes growth, and in no time, you'll see those zones develop into skyscrapers, except when they become schools and hospitals, but hey, what can you do? But the third method is to play like an insane person, defying all logic and basically trying to hack the game. For example, do you need a transit system? Yes, but just a little strip of railway every now and then is enough. Can you imagine getting on a train that only goes 1 block? That'd be some shitty itinerary. The most tedious part of the game is waiting for tax season. It's the only way to progress when funds run out, but the years drag on pretty slow. You can select different speeds, but even at the highest speed, it's not enough. What it needs is 1 extra speed, a Roadrunner icon. That ought to do it. But the best you can do is just sit around and wait. You know, I can review a whole other game in the time this takes. Any game. Kung Fu on Atari Lynx. What can you say about this? It's a food beat-em-up game. It opens with a cutscene, but without any text or explanation. I see what looks like 2 security guards who get knocked over as some guy runs out the door, goes into a pickup truck, and speeds away. Then he shows up at some house, and then level 1, the freezer. Okay. Now you're some green dude beating the shit out of food, I guess? There's a lot of potential here, but I don't know what kind of food these enemies are supposed to look like. I do see tomatoes and carrots, I guess, but are those typically what you put in the freezer? Couldn't they have popsicles, ice cubes, frozen pizzas, ice cream sandwiches? Well, the good thing about tomato enemies is that when you destroy them, it looks like blood. By the way, I got some more money in SimCity, but I'm gonna keep saving up. Kung Food sounds like a fun concept, but it's unplayable due to the clunky controls and awful hit detection. You can spend close to a minute trying to chase down one enemy. You have to precisely line yourself up toe to toe in order to hit anybody. Come on! Come on, you fucker! You see this shit? This is...
Am I missing one? No way. That's impossible. This is B1. Right. What the other arm? Okay, C1. Okay. So it's B1 and C1. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Alright. Huh. They never, I don't think that's ever happened before. So A5. 2? Is that what it is? No. 859. 859. So this is 859. That's what this is. Alright, we're good.
The most rotten food game I've ever played. Though it's pretty awesome seeing your character melt down to a skeleton. That's totally unexpected. I thought he was made of broccoli or something. But it's cool. Also, how many games have you ever played where you can pause the game over screen? So, my city's doing well, but in order to get that megalopolis, I need to reserve as much space as possible. Even if I need to build one little power line, that's going to erase my parks. Those are the little grassy areas. They raise the property value to help the buildings develop. But you can put the power lines over the railways without affecting them. See? It's little tricks like that. You need to fully utilize the land. You can't afford to waste a single pixel anywhere. If you want to win at SimCity, you can't fuck around. You gotta be more aggressive. You gotta demolish anything that's not necessary. What do the schools and hospitals do? Nah, I can't do that. That's morbid. But they're taking up space. And it's not required to have all those. They don't count as population. The residential areas can't grow to their full potential and combine together to form high-rise buildings, not with those schools and hospitals in the way. I had to do it. That's how you win the game. You have to send bulldozers through schools and hospitals. That is some dark shit. There's no schools or hospitals, but there's police departments on every block. This is a whole police city. It's like Escape from New York. In this town, the police say, fuck you.
Getting oil out of the ground's the most dangerous job in the world.
Trouble?
Always.
I didn't want him working out here.
Find a better way of making a living.
If you have diabetic macular edema, you never want to lose sight of the things you love. Some things should stand the test.
You thought SimCity was a utopian dream. It starts with that twinkling music that sounds so charming and invokes the feeling of aspirations and fantasies toward a hopeful future. But really, it's a deep, dark dive into a dystopian nightmare. In this city, profit and corruption reign supreme. You're not just building a shit town, you're building a monument to mankind's folly. An unholy labyrinth of concrete and steel strangling a fractured society. It's a place where the smog smothers the sky, extinguishing any ray of sunlight, just like the rays of humanity's optimism. The blind obedience of the citizens keeps the elite in power as they cower in the shadow of the wealthy. You're not a mayor, you're a dictator. Now, you know the true dark nature of Sim City. The game even gives you the power to call upon natural disasters. As it says in Nintendo Power, your powers even extend to the control of natural forces. Why not send a tornado ripping through town? And if you feel like obliterating a major metropolitan area, no problem. There are 6 fun-filled disasters to choose from.
The game encourages you to spread death and destruction. Anyway,
the citizens complain about unemployment, so I add more industrial zones so they have places to work. But they complain about pollution, so I make sure all my polluting facilities are on the edge of the gaming boundaries. That means the pollution radius is cut off by the screen. Does that mean the smog is drifting into another city? Yeah, it's somebody else's problem now. Fuck them. Maybe Nintendo wants the pollution to go into a Sega game, like Populous. Then they complain about housing costs. What am I supposed to do about that?
you can never win. You fix one thing, then they get pissed off about something else. Oh, you want lower taxes? Okay, I lowered the fucking taxes. Oh, what is it now? Unemployment? Okay, here's some commercial and industrial zones. Oh, you still not happy? What's the problem now? Crime? Pollution? You want another stadium? You know what? You can all go fuck yourselves! Yeah, you fuckers!
How do you like that? Want some tornadoes? Earthquakes? I'll give you the works. Bowser's gonna take you to hell. And if I haven't already made it clear, let me spell it out. Fuck you. Let's see what the citizens think of me now. Oh shit, my approval rating went up.
Oh, they're cooperative. They learn. Look what I've got here. A whole civilization of tiny people who will grovel at my feet. Ha 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 ha! Ha 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 ha! Ah ha 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 ha! Aha! Good likeness. Look what they did. And they did it overnight. Who needs a Mario statue when I have my very own? An impressive sight. And in return, I give them my smile. I won't tramp my feet down on their town. All right now, my little friends. Now comes the new age. The age of the nerd. Oh, there's gonna be a lot of plans to make. Much work to be done. No! No! You can't stay here! Don't you understand? I'm the god! I'm the god!
The case of Mr. Nerd, a victim of delusion. In this case, the dream dies a little harder than the man. A small exercise in simulated city development that you can try and for size on the angry video game nerd.
Oh, shoot. Alright, that was cool. Oh, shoot, I did it. I had to redo it. Did it backwards. So it goes. Wait a minute, hold on. Yeah, it goes this way. Alright, yep, there we go. There we go. Boom. What else can we check out? Sure.
The importance of a well-written protagonist and antagonist are central to the success and appeal of a good story. One of the factors that distinguishes a good story from a great one is the care and love that goes into the crafting of the side characters. A story that has a strong, well-developed supporting cast grants a sense of depth and gravitas to the world they belong to. It's easier for the audience to immerse and lose themselves in the world that the author weaves around them if the characters that inhabit it feel more alive than mere ornamental placeholders. One of the best examples of this is the anime manga Claymore, illustrated and written by mangaka Norihiro Yagi. The manga for the series ran for a total of 115 chapters, which have been compiled into 27 volumes and were published between 2001 and 2014. The series also received an anime adaptation, which covered the first 11 volumes of the manga as its source material, with the final 2 episodes providing a drastically altered ending to the story. Although the anime, under the direction of legendary director Hiroyuki Tanaka, who's previously worked for shows like Attack on Titan, Ninja Scroll, and Super Dimension Fortress Macross, does a stellar job capturing the essence of Norihiro Yagi's art and intent. The ending is far too rushed and doesn't hold a candle to the original ending of the manga. The anime is otherwise very well made, with many wishing that it had received more episodes in order to flesh out the series. For those who have their interest piqued by the anime, we highly recommend checking out the manga. It'll not disappoint you. In Claymore, Norihiro Yagi creates a world that is dystopian to its core, but feels extremely lived in, thanks to how he's handled almost every single character that we meet during the course of the series. While Claire's story drives the plot, the journey is filled with humans and monsters of all kinds. It's through her interactions with them, whether it takes place in the form of conflict or kindness, that we get to see the story develop into the beloved gem that it is. This interaction that we've mentioned would feel extremely hollow if the supporting cast were mere one-dimensional characters. Instead, due to how painstakingly the world has been set up, from the fears and trepidation of the characters to their ambition, unique powers and interpersonal relationships, the audience can't help but get invested in the world and its denizens. Claymore is not for the squeamish or the faint of heart, and is definitely targeted towards a much more adult audience, as it contains themes of nudity, violence, and gore. Norihiro Yagi's Claymore is a world that is truly alive. Due to the world being extremely well crafted, things such as the power hierarchy are clearly defined by the author in Claymore. We have some of the most broken and powerful characters in anime manga within this series. Today, we're going to be looking at some of the strongest beings that inhabit this fantasy world, 14 of them to be precise. These are some of the characters. If you dwell in the world of Claymore, you definitely don't want to come across them or get on their bad side. The list is in no particular order for the most part, as there are some characters that really muddy the water if we were to do a strict ranking. So, without further ado, let's jump right into this list as we navigate the perilous realm of Claymore, and let's hope that we come out on the other side with our innards intact. Miyata, the Blood Eye. Miyata is the rank 4 warrior of the organization during the period of the...
And welcome back to this US Open office plan.
Miller just lobbed a message way over Jones's head using some technical jargon.
Final battle of the series. She's still a child, but is touted to be a battle prodigy with the potential to easily become the rank 1 warrior. We find out that the reason she's not been given that rank is primarily due to her fragile mental state and instability. Not much is revealed to us about Miyata's past, other than the fact that she used to live with her mother, who raised her by herself. At some point, her mother was killed by a Yoma, after which she was taken in by the organization, who transformed her into a Claymore. Owing to the trauma of her mother's death and the harrowing procedure and training she had to endure, Miyata is extremely mentally unstable. In some ways, her character reminds one of Priscilla when she was still a human being. She seems to have, therefore, been shunned and feared by her peers and the organization alike, until the latter delegated Clarice, another Claymore, to be her keeper. Since Clarice was considered a failed experiment and was extremely weak, the organization thrust Miyata's responsibility on her to see if she could perhaps tame the child. If Clarice succeeded, he could at least be useful to them in some way, and if she perished, they would have gotten rid of another faulty product. Miyata, however, takes to Clarice and grows extremely attached, only listening to Clarice's instructions. They develop a deep mother-daughter relationship, which helps to bring about a marked improvement in Miyata's mental health. It grants her the means to focus her deadly skills that earned her the name Blood Eye towards foes, warranting her fury. In combat, Miyata is shown to have prodigious movement and battle sense. In fact, this ability of hers is described as a sixth sense, with which Miyata is able to track her opponents without the help of Yoki. The closest thing it can be likened to besides a sixth sense is pure instinct. She can track her foes, whether they're warriors or Yoma, and gauge their strength and use it to her advantage. This makes it possible for her to suppress her Yoki and still maintain unparalleled situational awareness in the heat of battle. The only ones who seem to have this ability are Teresa and Priscilla. Upon awakening, Miyata's powers are said to be at the level of the Abyssal Ones. For those who are uninitiated to the world of Claymore, Abyssal Ones are considered to be the strongest monsters in existence for most of the series. They're generally a result of rank 1 level warriors awakening. In this form, she's seen being able to take on another powerful awakened being called Europa, who herself was said to have been at the level of an abyssal being. There is an argument to be made that Miata probably has the most potential for growth out of all the individuals on this list, both humans and monsters alike. What she lacks in experience, Miata more than makes up with her raw power, talent, and Yoki reserves. And after a seeming improvement to her mental stability by the end of her battle with Europa, the sky's the limit for this tiny powerhouse. Hysteria, the Elegant, considered to be one of the 8 strongest number 1 ranked warriors in the organization's history, Hysteria is one of the most powerful beings in the Claymore universe. Hysteria is seen as being obsessed with the idea of perfection and aesthetic sense. Hysteria seems to have a haughty demeanor, looking down upon those with techniques she considers ugly or unappealing to her, like in the case of Miria's reckless attacks to defeat her. Hysteria also seems to crave other people's attention when they're in her presence, expressing obvious irritation and anger when it's not given to her. She explicitly mentions to Miria during multiple instances of their conflict that she hates being ignored. Hysteria's technique is supposed to be the most beautiful fighting style to have ever been created up until her time. The secret to this technique was her extreme speed. If it just came down to speed, she's undoubtedly in the top 3 fastest warriors of all time. Her fighting style is very similar to Miria's phantom technique. She increases her speed dramatically by initiating a momentary burst of Yoki on her legs. The speeds that she achieves are so great that she can create after images. Unlike Miria's technique, which she uses primarily to disorient and dodge her opponent's attacks, Hysteria uses it in a much more direct and offensive fashion. She uses her sudden burst of speed to close the gap between her opponent and herself, with extreme precision, slashing her foes as she breezes past them. The speed and accuracy with which this seemingly simple attack is executed is so great, Hysteria appears to be phasing through her opponent, even as her enemy succumbs to her sword. The event, called the Massacre at Rockwell Hill, is one that lives in infamy in the annals of the organization's history. The organization had sent in warriors to purge a Claymore who had refused to send out her black card, which is used to ask one of her peers to euthanize her due to being on the verge of awakening. This warrior slaughtered all her sisters who came to kill her, and it said there was a small hill of corpses created by the body of the fallen. This warrior refused to accept her fate was none other than Hysteria the Elegant, who, having come to the end of the line, refused to accept her fate. It's speculated that being so obsessed with perfection and aesthetics, along with being supremely prideful of her own elegance, she was ashamed to show her fellow warriors her current condition. We also think she just couldn't bring herself to accept the fact that she wasn't as perfect as she'd convinced herself to be, refused to accept a condition. It is said that she expressed shock and betrayal at how easily her fellow warriors turned their blades on her. She would have most likely killed everyone, if not for a newly recruited warrior who would go on to gain the moniker of the Faint Smile, who injured her leg, robbing Hysteria of her speed. The killing blow would, however, be dealt by a warrior called Rosemary, who would temporarily succeed her as the number 1 warrior. Later, she'd be resurrected by Day as part of a trio of former number 1s to be awakened as abyssal beings in order to quell the Claymore Rebellion. In her awakened form, power of flight, godlike speed is further enhanced. She's seen taking on several single-digit ranked warriors of the current generation, along with the members of the Ghosts of the North, who are all as strong, if not stronger, than single-digit class.
Alright, I'm gonna do this. Boom. Alright, arms are done. Those are knocked out. Cool. Oh, we're making good time. Okay, next is the legs. Alright, let's go to the legs. Start with PC7. Alright, let's go back to this.
Warriors themselves. Hysteria is one of the most legendary warriors in the Claymore mythos and lives up to the stories of her strength. During her first life, if Teresa hadn't been there to stop her rampage, she probably would have awakened like she would do later on as one of the strongest abyssal ones. Her place is therefore very much justified in this list. Rigardo, the Silver-Eyed Lion King. This male warrior was part of the first generation of Claymores and was ranked just below Isley, who would go on to be the Abyssal of the North. The name Rigardo has some etymological relationship to Riccardo in Italian, which further might allude to Richard, as in King Richard the Lionheart. This would make sense if one were to take into account Rigardo's awakened form, which is of an anthropomorphic bipedal lion. During the Battle of Pieta, he's one of the first real single-digit awakened warriors that Claire doesn't battle against. His strength is immediately shown as being overwhelming, as he proceeds to cut a bloody swathe through the warriors present there. He's seen cutting down warriors
Come on.
like Undine, Jean, Flora, and Veronica, all of whom are either single-digit or just outside the single digits effortlessly. Ricardo shows a high battle acumen and intelligence as he recognizes Miria's plan of dividing the Claymore into groups led by the strongest warriors instead of putting all the strong warriors in one group. This is what leads him to go on his killing spree where he targets only the powerful warriors in order to break the Claymore's morale and destroy the chain of command. We also know that he's the second last warrior from the first generation to awaken. During his time as a warrior, Ricardo's shown being obsessed with the ranking system of the Claymores, as he refuses to acknowledge Isley as his superior, since they haven't fought against each other. After being defeated by Isley, he joins the Abyssal One of the North as his right-hand man. His obsession with strength and his disregard for those he considers to be weak is what ultimately would lead to his demise. He grossly underestimates Claire's strength since she was the weakest of her generation, only to be overwhelmed by her partial awakening. We feel that if he'd been a bit more tempered and cautious, the fight against Claire might have had a different outcome. Ricardo's fighting style relies heavily on his overwhelming speed. This, combined with his ferocity, makes him a frightening opponent. In his battle against the Claymores in Pieta, Ricardo outclasses the female warriors by such a margin that he really sets the tone for what the audience can expect from a single-digit awakened being. Ricardo might not have been the king of the jungle, but there's no doubt his battle prowess made him worthy of his moniker, the Silver-Eyed Lion King. Alicia and Beth. These are the top two warriors of the organization during Claire's time and the events of the final battle. Even though these two warriors can occupy two different slots in this list, we put them together because their true power lies in their ability, which is called Soul Link. Alicia and Beth were raised from childhood, and they had no sense of self in order to hone this ability, as it required a single body to host two different consciousnesses. Having a zero sense of self means that the assimilation process is much smoother due to the lack of conflicting personalities. Ironically, this is shown to be the case only when they're not using this technique, because during their fights, the audience is shown how the twins are very much concerned about each other's well-being. They even express emotions such as anger, concern, and despair when either one of them is in trouble. We can therefore assume that this lack of individuality is only really necessary and important for the merger of their consciousness. You must be wondering about how any of this psychic power stuff translates to their joint position in this list. Let's fill you in on that now. The Soul Link technique is the most crucial ability in the arsenal of these two warriors, as it allows one of them to fully awaken without losing control, and it even allows the awakened warrior to revert back to her normal state. We know that once a warrior awakens, there's no way for them to regain their humanity. Sure, they can imitate the appearance of a human, but they're forever irrevocably changed. This bypasses that limitation, allowing the organization to have its very own abyssal, which it can control. One must understand that the organization is a dubious bunch, always looking to create the next strongest warrior. It wasn't so much that they had a problem with the awakening of warriors, it was their inability to control these awakened beings, which was the problem. They'd been trying to experiment with Soul Link even as far back as Rafaela and Luciella, which was their first attempt to create an abyssal being that they could control. The only weakness of these two warriors is that if either of the two warriors is mortally wounded, the other is guaranteed to lose control. Alicia, when she awakens, is easily in the same tier as an abyssal one, and is seen taking on the likes of Raiful, Dauf, and even Priscilla. What works against them all is all of the abyssal ones and awakened beings having been around for a much longer time than they have. As such, the twins lack the necessary experience. Despite this, Alicia and Beth are not to be trifled with, and are arguably considered to be the organization's greatest creation. Dauf. Dauf is the rank 3 warrior of the first generation of Claymore, just like Isley and Ricardo. He's shown as the companion of Raiful of the West, with whom he seems to share a bond akin to love, although their relationship could easily be mistaken for that of servant and mistress. We're told initially that the awakened beings lose all sense of humanity and are merely voracious eaters, but this is proven to be false time and time again as we explore the characters of these beings. Dauf is portrayed as a brute who's not very bright and needs to be constantly directed by Raiful regarding everything. He seems to harbor an intense attachment towards Raiful, making fiercely loyal and protective toward her. Other than his feelings toward his companion, Dauf seems to have no other sense of personality. In his awakened form, he turns into an armored monster with close to impenetrable skin. No ordinary sword strike, even from a claymore, is able to penetrate his armor. We, however, see powerful attacks like Jean's drill sword being able to wound him significantly. He's able to produce rods of varying sizes from different parts of his body, like mouth, arms, and back. Dauf is then able to launch these rods as projectiles at his enemies. He's also able to transform these rods to form various other objects like chains and spears. This monstrous being is also able to alter his size to an extent, which can be seen during 2 separate occasions when he's fighting a newly awakened Katea and then later on, Claire. With the former, he appears about the same size as an ordinary man, but against Claire, he takes on a more hulking form. Like most awakened beings, Dauf has a penchant for violence and shows very little remorse, as can be seen when he's torturing a number of claymores in order to force them to awaken. He's definitely stronger than most awakened beings, as he's seen single-handedly slaughtering several of them belonging to Isley's army. In his rage, he's shown to be strong enough to even overpower a fully awakened Priscilla, although it doesn't last very long. What makes Dauf scary is also his simple-minded nature. He has no idea of good and evil or personal motivation. He's like a loose cannon that'll destroy anything that lies in the direction that Riefel points him toward. Roxanne of Love and Hate, one of the 8 strongest number 1 warriors to have ever existed. Roxanne is perhaps one of the most powerful and evil claymore of them all. Her personality makes Ophelia look like an adorable kitten. Formerly ranked 35 in the organization, she'd have a meteoric rise up the ranks, ultimately making her the rank 1 warrior of her generation. However, the circumstances concerning her rise to power would be dubious, to say the least. You see, Roxanne had the strangest knack of becoming friends with warriors stronger than her and whose techniques she admired. She'd go to extreme lengths to learn their art, even going so far as to stab herself in the eye while learning the former number 9 Nadine's sensory techniques. After she'd learned the abilities of her friend, that individual would perish not long after under strange circumstances. For example, dying in a hunt against a Yoma or an awakened being far below their level. Roxanne wouldn't even mourn their deaths, would soon move on to find a new friend whose technique had captured her interest. She's been described by many of her peers as super creepy. It was this fate that befell upon those she befriended that also earned her the name of the Love and Hate. Roxanne's interest would finally be piqued by the then number 1 warrior, Cassandra. At the time, Roxanne was ranked 5 in the organization and was desperate to find out the secret behind Cassandra's powers. She tried to befriend the Claymore in order to learn her secret. While Cassandra befriends the young girl, she refuses to take her for hunts along with her. Roxanne eventually follows her in secret and discovers Cassandra's secret technique, but refuses to copy it, deeming it to be the ugliest technique to have ever been created and used by a number 1. After achieving the 2nd rank in the organization, Roxanne would be responsible later on for the torture and murder of a low-ranked warrior who was Cassandra's friend, earning her the number 1 warrior's hatred. Roxanne would plot against Cassandra by informing the organization that their top warrior was planning to incite a rebellion. She'd then use this opportunity to kill Cassandra and take over as the new number 1. It's not stated specifically what the reason behind her being able to copy people's techniques so easily and even improve them was. Most speculation suggests that she had the ability to synchronize her yoki with the other person, making her capable of rapidly learning and mimicking their movement and abilities. Her confirmed victims are close to 10 by the time she becomes the top warrior. She would have surely added to that list by the time of her demise. It's further speculated that perhaps she had the ability to manipulate the yoki of others like the organization's rank 10 warriors were known to do. This could prove an explanation as to how some of her victims, who were meant to be far too powerful for their hunt, fell victim to their weaker quarry on such a regular basis. We're not told how or when she died. Roxanne is later resurrected by day, along with Hysteria and Cassandra. Even then, she's seen taunting Cassandra, reminding her of her friend's death along with her own. Even as she's getting devoured, Roxanne continues to spit venomous words till her last breath. Roxanne of Love and Hate is one of the most terrifying and insidious characters to exist in Claymore. Cassandra, the Dust Eater. Having just discussed Roxanne, it's only fitting that we now talk about Cassandra, her predecessor, as their fates are intricately tied to each other. Cassandra was the number 1 ranked warrior of the organization, and was considered to be one of the top 8 strongest number 1 warriors in their history, alongside the likes of Hysteria the Elegant, Roxanne of Love and Hate, Three-Armed Licht, Heavy-Bladed Chloe, Sistina the Divine Oracle, Lutetia the Universal, and Teresa of the Faint Smile. Even though Cassandra has an aloof personality and is generally feared by her peers, she's shown to be shy and extremely self-conscious when complimented by Roxanne during their first encounter. Cassandra was a mystery to many because, according to Roxanne, her sword skills were barely good enough for her to be ranked as the 5th strongest warrior in the organization. Yet her superiority was undisputed. She'd always go for hunts alone and refuse any sort of accompaniment. There were only a select few warriors who knew about her true fighting style. Although it was extremely effective and powerful, she was deeply ashamed of it. As Roxanne would describe it, when she was using this technique, she looked like she was crawling across the floor and eating dust, earning her the nickname, the Dust Eater. There was only one person who she would totally open up to, but this individual, who was the 35th ranked warrior of her time, would be murdered thanks to Roxanne's machinations. Cassandra, too, would eventually be murdered due to another plot by Roxanne to usurp her rank and would die, failing to avenge her friend. Cassandra would later be resurrected along with Hysteria and Roxanne by day during the Claymore Rebellion. Miria remarks that Cassandra was probably the strongest Abyssal being amongst the three newly resurrected former number ones. She eventually gets her revenge on Roxanne by devouring her. During the final battle, she breaks free from Priscilla's control and duels Teresa in her human form. Despite proving to be a formidable warrior by injuring Teresa, she voluntarily retires after having her arm cut off. She expresses gratitude towards Teresa for letting her finally fight all out without any pretense as a proud warrior, disintegrating into the wind with a smile. Luciella, the Empress of the South. Luciella is the former rank 1 warrior of Raphaela's generation and is also the latter's sister. She, along with her sister, would be the organization's first attempt at Soul Link to create abyssal beings that they could control. Unfortunately for them, Raphaela wouldn't be able to maintain the link, which would result in Luciella not being able to return back to normal. As she awakened fully without restraint, Luciella would go on a rampage and bring the organization to the brink of extinction. She'd injure her sister, destroy one of her eyes, kill multiple trainees and warriors, and destroy their headquarters. Luciella would then move to the southern part of the island and claim that territory as her own. This would establish the tenuous power balance in the land that would exist until her defeat at the hands of Isley. She's then found by Raphaela crawling in her human form, exhausted and wounded after her battle. Upon seeing her sister, she expresses genuine delight and asks Raphaela to awaken so that they can take on Isley together and conquer the rest of the lands. A tearful Raphaela, however, hugs her and ends her life. Not much is known about Luciella's days as a Claymore, but going by her rank and her status as an abyssal being post-awakening, she must have been an extremely powerful warrior. As an awakened being, Luciella was one of the original 3 abyssal beings and was powerful enough that Isley, Riefel, and the organization left her alone for the most part. We therefore feel she's very much earned her place on this list. Riefel, the Abyssal One of the West. This former warrior is hinted to be the first female warrior to have been created by the organization after their first generation of men failed. We see it in a flashback toward the end of the male warriors era, approaching Isley, Rigardo, and Dauf. Riefel is said to be the youngest female warrior to have reached her full potential as the single-digit rank warrior before awakening as the Abyssal of the West. She takes up her abode and controls the western regions of the islands. Just like Luciella, Riefel is one of the original 3 abyssal beings. As a warrior, not much is known about her exploits, other than what we've already mentioned. What information we do have about her is during her awakened state, which is how we encounter her for most of the series.
Long before they became legends, Mufasa and the prince who would come to be known as...
She's shown to be highly territorial and in direct opposition to the other 2 abyssal beings. And later on, Priscilla. She often displays a playful disposition, even when performing acts of cruelty, like when she kidnapped and tortured a number of Claymores to see them awaken, or when she was torturing Renee in order to prod the consciousness of the fused Raphaela and Luciella. She openly acknowledges her inferiority to Priscilla when she rushes to defeat Isley after his battle with Luciella. Riefel is deterred by the presence of Priscilla, and from thenceforth begins contriving ways to defeat her. Her awakened form grants her nigh invulnerability, as it's almost impossible to slash her. This is because her body's composed of numerous ribbons made out of an unknown substance. Riefel can easily make the blows directed at herself slip past the gaps of these ribbons. Further, she can use these ribbons to attack her foes as well. She proves to be a formidable adversary even for Priscilla, but is eventually cut down. Riefel, despite being an abyssal one, and therefore being unbound by the moral codes of humans, is shown to display care and affection for Dauf, despite appearing to treat him harshly. Her personality has a bit of a tsundere element to it, with regard to how she treats Dauf. Riefel's presence is felt throughout the series, and she plays an important role during some crucial parts of the story. Her powers can't be denied both as a warrior and an abyssal being, thereby fully earning her spot on this list. Isley, the Emperor of the North. The one, known as the White Silver King, is perhaps one of the strongest beings to have walked the world of Claymore. He's the former #1 ranked warrior of the very first generation of Claymores, who were all men. During his time as a warrior, Isley is shown to have a very easygoing, laid-back attitude, but we're informed later, mainly by Kronos, the 4th ranked warrior of that time, that it was merely a small side of his personality. Isley is said to have borne a massive sense of responsibility when it came to being the strongest warrior of his generation. It's suggested that he was so strong that he could easily take on all the 7 members of the Ghosts of the North, even in his Claymore days. The Ghosts of the North are no mere pushovers, with almost all of them being as powerful as single-digit warriors. When the men began to succumb to their powers and started awakening one by one, it's said that Isley was the last one to awake. Even then, Isley didn't go through an awakening because he couldn't resist after reaching his limits or was pushed too hard in battle. He awakened of his own free will. How utterly savage is that? It's heavily implied that the only reason he went through awakening is because he felt guilty for being the only male warrior who didn't awaken. Isley is also said to have felt a great sense of remorse for not being able to help his brothers, despite being their leader. Finally, it's speculated that by awakening, he hoped to end his fellow warriors' reign of terror and grant their souls peace. Having been transformed into flesh-devouring monsters with no honor, only governed by hatred and hunger. Unfortunately, when someone goes through awakening, not only are they altered physically, but even their mental state is changed, as their humanity is pushed into the recesses. As an Abyssal One, not only does he rule over the northern regions of the islands, but also commands an entire army of awakened beings. He himself is considered to be the strongest Abyssal being out of the original 3 Abyssal beings, which is the reason why Priscilla was drawn to him to begin with. He also seems to remember the sword arts of the Claymores, which he teaches Raki to prepare the young boy for his battle against Priscilla. After being hunted by the Abyss Feeders, he sends the boy and Priscilla away from him, showing he still holds a sense of kinship, perhaps regarding them as family. His awakened form resembles that of a centaur of sorts, capable of firing a barrage of homing missiles at his target in rapid succession. Rigardo, who was known for his speed, admits that Isley's speed far outclassed his own. We do know that he's once again weaker than Priscilla after she defeats him in combat. That is, however, not a knock to his powers, because there's only a handful of beings more powerful than Priscilla. The Emperor of the North is a powerhouse and one of the most interesting characters in all of Claymore, well deserving of his place here in this list. The Destroyer. The entity known as the Destroyer is the awakened state of the fused form of Rafaela and Luciella. When Rafaela encounters Luciella after the latter's defeat at the hand of Isley, we see that she breaks her back while hugging her, intending to kill her sister. What we later see is that their bodies have somehow fused and are now in a dormant state. Upon awakening, they take the twisted form of the twin goddesses of love, Teresa and Claire, almost as if in mockery. Unlike the goddesses, the Destroyer, as its name suggests, exists solely to spread destruction and mayhem. It doesn't seem to have any motivation and seems to be functioning purely on instincts. It expels large amounts of parasitic rods over a large radius. If one is impaled by one of these rods, they take over the individual's body and use it as a host to transform into Yoma-like creatures. They, however, do not last forever, and once they've drained their host's life energy, they die. Having been created with the body of an abyssal being, Luciella and her sister Rafaela, who had similar potential, the Destroyer's powers far exceed that of even abyssal ones. She seemed competing on equal footing with Priscilla, who until then had been the only being who had exceeded the abyssal beings. Its true form is shown to be a shapeless dark mass of Yoki, perhaps symbolizing its all-devouring abyssal nature. This is confirmed when Priscilla describes it as being devoid of any attachments, a literal embodiment of the abyss, which simply seeks to destroy everything until nothing remains. We're told that had it not been for the appearance of...
Alright, we're done with one. 110% complete. Alright, let's keep going.
A Reefal-like being into the fray, the Destroyer would have had the upper hand over Priscilla and was close to taking over her body. This goes to show what a threat the Destroyer is and the scope of its power. If not for the power of plot armor, the Destroyer could have easily ended the Claymore series prematurely, truly living up to its name. Reefal-like being. Toward the end of the series, we're introduced to yet another character who's once again far more powerful than the Abyssal ones. Its appearance is very similar to that of Reefal's awakened form, but it combines the ability of Dauf as well. We're not given any name for this character, so we're going to be referring to it as the Reefal-like being, which is what most fans seem to call it. It seems to have combined the strengths of both the original entities and compensated for each one of their weaknesses as well. This entity possesses the wile and craftiness of Reefal with the brute strength and durability of Dauf. Its abilities are, in general, very similar to Reefal and Dauf's. Its body is composed of ribbons, which it can use for both defense and offense, while it's also able to expel the rods, like Dauf. After absorbing the Destroyer, one can say this creature is now an amalgamation of Luciella, Rafaela, Reefal, and Dauf, which in itself should give us an idea of how strong it is, having discussed all of these characters previously. It's capable of absorbing other creatures and their energy, and using that energy for its own benefit. During its fight with Priscilla, it's seen absorbing her excessive powers to augment its own. Later, we see it even absorbing Priscilla's flesh, pushing her regeneration to the limit. This ability is in fact so strong that it makes someone as arrogant as Priscilla, who simply tanks through all attacks, to actually change her tactics. She's only defeated when Priscilla changes herself into her warrior form and uses her claymore. which is inorganic and hence can't be absorbed by this entity. Aside from Teresa, this character is the only one to force any sort of serious reaction from Priscilla throughout the story. Some people even speculate that the Riefel-like being could possibly be the awakened offspring of Dauf and Riefel, but this hasn't been confirmed anywhere. Regardless, most people would agree that the Riefel-like being is the third strongest entity in all of Claymore. Priscilla, the one-horned monster, the character who's touted as being the strongest character in all of Claymore, is unfortunately only the second most powerful according to us. We've already done a deep dive into her character on our channel, so be sure to check that out next time. Priscilla is the overarching antagonist of the Claymore series. She's the first character to be categorized as being beyond an abyssal being. Priscilla was a young girl with a traumatic past whose father was a Yoma that had slaughtered her entire family. After becoming a Claymore, she was almost immediately promoted to the position of rank 2 warrior, owing to her extraordinary potential power. She possessed an intense hatred for the Yoma and an extremely naive understanding of good and bad. Even though Teresa herself admitted that Priscilla had the potential to surpass her, the latter was plagued with a very fragile mentality. Upon being overwhelmed by Teresa, she awakens fully as a monster that towered above everything in existence. Her human subconscious would, however, place a mental wedge where Priscilla would ignore young girls, hoping that a Claymore would rise from amongst them to one day put her down. While she not only retains her sword skills from her warrior days during her battle with Raki, Claire, and the Ghosts of the North, it's hinted Priscilla has further refined it. Miria even calls it the perfect sword style. During her time as a warrior, she relied on reading her opponent and used her graceful movements to dodge and counter-strike. But as an awakened being, her fighting style is exactly the opposite. As the one-horned monster, Priscilla simply tanks all damage and overwhelms her opponents by sheer force, as she massively outclasses even the strongest beings like the abyssal ones in power. Her regeneration is so strong that it's been likened to the power of creation. Just a single arm of hers was strong enough to power the resurrection of 3 former number 1 warriors and their transformation into abyssal beings. She's also able to absorb other awakened beings and use their abilities as her own. Perhaps Priscilla's greatest feat is killing Teresa during her awakening and setting into motion the primary plot line of the story. She's not just strong, but cunning and devious, as we see during her fight with the Riefel-like being. During her initial battle with Teresa, she manages to surprise the warrior by supposedly suppressing her Yoki. We say supposedly because, according to some, Priscilla's ability was not technically the suppression of Yoki, but the manipulation of Yoki's generation. If one were to suppress their Yoki, the energy still exists in a subdued form, which someone like Teresa would easily sense. Priscilla, on the other hand, is speculated to have had the ability to completely extinguish her Yoki and release it in increments according to her will. This would make sense because, as a fighter, Priscilla didn't require Yoki to sense her opponents. Instead, she relied on an ability akin to Miata's sixth sense. The only reason she went berserk was because Teresa was just that overwhelmingly powerful. Priscilla derives her strength from hatred, and initially we believe that the hatred stems from her feelings towards Teresa, who, despite being a villain in her books, was stronger than her and drove her to awaken. But toward the end of the series, we find out her hatred was directed towards herself for awakening and turning into the very thing she hated the most in the world. A Claymore's strength is influenced by their hatred towards the Yoma, as it is said. Therefore, that explains why Priscilla was such a formidable character, not just as a Claymore, but also as a being that transcended the abyssal ones. If you thought Priscilla in the anime was powerful, wait till you see her in the manga. She's one of the most overpowered characters in all of anime and manga. This still, however, doesn't qualify her to make the top of the list.
Yep. And finished up one, even though I still got to put it together. Another one done. Let's keep going.
Honorable mention, Claire. Before we divulge the character that made the top of our list as the strongest character in all of Claymore, we believe there's at least one honorable mention that we'd like to make. Even though Claire starts off as the weakest of all the Claymores, by the end of the series, she's probably one of the strongest. Throughout the series, we see her adding new skills to her repertoire, like the Wind Cutter, Quick Sword, and Raffaella's own fighting technique. In the very end, she's able to transform into Teresa, and with their combined power, they're able to destroy the hatred within Priscilla and slay her. It's interesting that Claire isn't the strongest character in the series despite being its protagonist. Unlike the main character in most shows, one could always argue that she's the strongest because her transformation into Teresa is her power as well. We'd certainly not disagree with that completely, but for us, that is still Teresa fighting, complete with her own personality and appearance. It's not as if Claire simply gained Teresa's martial prowess while retaining her own consciousness. When transformed in that state, we're clearly made to understand that the person standing in front of us is no longer Claire, at least for that moment. During the series, no matter how strong she gets, we don't get to see Claire defeating a single high-level awakened one, other than Rigardo on her own. Rigardo is definitely stronger than Dauf, not at the same level, and Dauf is an opponent Claire is seen not being able to defeat on her own, as she did with Rigardo. In fact, Dauf is someone Claire actively tries to avoid in combat later in the series. One can, therefore, make the argument that Rigardo was too prideful and arrogant to consider Claire a worthy opponent, which prevented him from truly comprehending the threat she possessed and making the necessary adjustments. One can't blame him, because Claire was the weakest warrior amongst the Claymores of the Northern Campaign. Claire is nonetheless worthy of an honourable mention, as outside of the absolute monsters in this list, it's probably the strongest Claymore out there. Teresa of the Faint Smile. Fans of the series probably knew this was coming. For the title of the strongest character in Claymore, we have to choose Teresa of the Faint Smile. Teresa is the most broken character in the entire series, despite dying right at the start. Hear us out why that is. Teresa is considered to be the strongest number 1 to have ever existed in the history of the Claymores. Her Yoki reserves are so vast that if she'd awakened, it's almost a guarantee that she would have been even stronger than Priscilla, who already surpasses the abyssal beings. As a Claymore, Teresa never utilizes her Yoki to fight against awakened beings and her fellow warriors, as she's just too powerful and doesn't need to rely on its powers. Her ability to sense Yoki is so strong that she can predict her opponent's moves by sensing the Yoki collecting around their various body parts. This grants her an ability that's almost like precognition, making it impossible for people to harm her unless they can absolutely catch her with her guard down or nullify their Yoki. Teresa is capable of sensing Rafaela, who was an expert at covert ops and hiding her Yoki even as a child. Further, during the massacre at Rockwell Hill, she's the one who's truly responsible for bringing down Hysteria. Even if it was someone else who took the killing blow, we rarely see her tap into even 10% of her powers. If memory serves us right, the fight with Priscilla is the second time we ever get a glimpse of her releasing 10% of her Yoki. With a mere 10% of her Yoki, Teresa's able to easily defeat an almost fully awakened Priscilla. If she'd not been careless and let her guard down, she would surely not have been slain. This is confirmed during the final battle when she takes over Claire's body. She's easily able to defeat Priscilla, who's arguably at the peak of her powers. Teresa also defeats Cassandra, one of the 8 strongest number 1s just like her, quite decisively. Her strength is so overwhelming that she allows Priscilla to have a second chance by letting her withdraw temporarily to gather her strength, and then proceeds to demolish her once again. Did we mention Teresa is happily chatting with the people on the battlefield while she's fighting against the being who was considered the strongest being in existence? The thing is, as noted by Irene, is that Teresa doesn't have any specialization like Noel's strength or Sophia's speed or even some secret sword technique like Flora's windcutter. Teresa is just so overwhelmingly strong and special, she doesn't need any specializations. Even her awakening is different. Instead of turning into a monster like the rest, she grows feathery wings and resembles the goddess she's named after. You know that you're the strongest character in the series when the villain is protected by plot armor instead of you, and the author has to kill you off right at the start. Marvelous verdict. The world of Claymore is packed to the brim with dangerous creatures, both human and non-human, whose powers border at the edge of what logic would permit. There's a clear-cut hierarchy of power that's been established throughout the series, whether it's amongst the warriors with their ranks or the Yoma or the world in general. This is definitely not an isekai anime where the protagonist just gains a massive broken ability and solos the entire world. Claire is not at the top of the totem pole when it comes to power, and it really serves the story and her character development well. In keeping with the topic of this video, we've not even discussed the likes of Abyss Feeders and the Asurikam, or Dragonkin as they're known. These are just 2 examples of creatures who could easily make this list. We'll be sure to do a deep dive video exploring these creatures in the future, along with an analysis of the characters mentioned in this video. One might notice a distinct lack of Claymores in this list. It's because the series, in no unclear terms, shows us the difference in their power levels compared to the beings mentioned in this list. We'd have loved to include the other 4 number 1 warriors, who are classified as the strongest in history in this list, but little to nothing exists about them or their feats, except the mention of their names. The Ghosts of the North, while formidable warriors in their own right, having survived clashes with multiple awakened and abyssal beings, are no match individually to any character mentioned in this list. Their greatest strength lies in their unity and coordination, and even with that, they struggle against these individuals. The unnamed twins, who were meant to replace Alicia and Beth, along with Rafaela, the number 10 warrior, would have all made this list, but unfortunately, there was space for only 14. One thing to be noted is the irony of how a list full of literal monsters is dominated by a monstrous human being. We hope you've been enjoying the Claymore content that we've been putting out, and we appreciate your support as we shed more light on this highly underappreciated gem. Tell us how you feel about this list, and give us your own list in the comments section. For now, we've come to the end of this video, and we've got to say goodbye. Thanks for sticking with us to the end. Be sure to stay safe and marvelous.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Claymore. I haven't watched that series in years, but I used to watch it all the time as a kid. It's really good. One I would probably recommend anybody check out. Wait a minute. Yeah. B132, 33, that's fine. B1, 1. B1, okay. And then C213. Such. Yeah. Okay. And I need PC9. Okay. Boom. Okay, cool. Alright. Let's go. Okay. Boom, boom, and then goes this way. There you go. Then one goes this way. There we go. Legs are done. Now I'm on to the waist. Okay. Let's see what we got. Three weeks ago? Yeah. I want to see the worst Final Fantasy games ever made. I want to see this. Very curious. Alright, we'll check this one out. I'm very curious what they're going to say. What is the worst Final Fantasy? And this will probably take us to finishing up this live stream. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and do this. B1, 15, 16.
With so many Final Fantasy games now in existence, there are countless opinions out there about which ones are great and which ones aren't so great. There are, of course, many factors that go into such a determination, and what's interesting is that if you asked two different fans of the franchise to name their top 5 and their bottom 5, the chances of them being the exact same games in the exact same order is very low. On a professional scale, this can be evidenced by games journalists pulling together their own lists. For example, in March of 2024, Steve Watts and Brendan Hess of GameSpot, who I'm sure are lovely people, used their collective brainpower to place Final Fantasy VI as the absolute best Final Fantasy game ever made, with Final Fantasy XII, specifically the Zodiac Age iteration, coming in second. But only a few weeks earlier, Chris Freiberg and Matthew Bird, who I'm sure are equally lovely people, pulled their intellects together to write a piece for Den of Geek. They agreed that Final Fantasy VI was the best, but determined that it was Final Fantasy VII, not Final Fantasy XII, which was the second best game, and to emphasize this, they placed Final Fantasy XII way down in 10th position. Taking this notion further, people can't even agree on what should be classified as the golden age of Final Fantasy. There are those who believe it relates to Final Fantasy 7 through 10, while others include Final Fantasy 6 as the start of the golden age, and others still include Final Fantasy 12 on the end, while excluding Final Fantasy 11 and 10-2. Square Enix themselves actually classified the golden age as Final Fantasy 7 through 12, including 11 and 10-2, as denoted by a presentation they did at PAX back in 2012. The bottom end of the scale, though, then gets even muddier, as also shown by the aforementioned lists. Now, we could sit here and tell you what we think are the best Final Fantasy games ever made, and also the worst, but that's not really our style. What we prefer to do instead is rely on data. So we thought we'd do one of our egregious surveys, and after asking almost 2,500 people their thoughts on 57 different Final Fantasy games, we're excited to share the results. To explain a bit more though, some months ago we produced a survey where we listed 57 different entries from the Final Fantasy franchise. Those who took the survey were asked to score games between 1 and 5, with the option also available for people to state if they just hadn't played a game. We've now sorted all of the valid scores, and that forms the basis for this video. In addition, for the mainline entries, we also asked people to contribute 5 words that encapsulated their experience, so when mainline entries do crop up, expect to see a teeny bit more focus. With that though, let's take a look at the rankings, and in this video, we're going to be focused on the worst Final Fantasy games ever made, according to you, the viewers. Rock bottom, in last place, is Final Fantasy All the Bravest. It received a score of 1.88 out of 5, with this score based on the 16% of people who took the survey that actually said they played the game. The placement of All the Bravest, though, is unlikely to surprise anyone. It was released during a period when Square Enix was seeing considerable success from their mobile and social games. As such, they sought to push monetization boundaries further, while attempting to offer alternative sources of enjoyment for their now rather expansive player base. To work towards that objective, Tetsuya Nomura conceived a new type of game that was to be like nothing ever seen before in the franchise. And Square Enix were convinced its unorthodox and expansive gameplay style would resonate with audiences around the world. So much so that they pushed towards a simultaneous global release, as opposed to the typical single-region release strategy for mobile games. What became known as Final Fantasy All the Bravest, shortened to FFATB, was produced by Ichiro Hazama, who at the time had become quite solidified as Square Enix's go-to mobile producer, with Tatsuya Kando and Hiroyuki Ito of Kingdom Hearts fame as opposed to Final Fantasy fame serving as director and co-director respectively. Development was then overseen by a company called Bitgroove, and on paper, what they were creating sounded fun, exciting, and innovative. The classic ATB system was iterated on to create a fast-paced, touch-based battle system, and players were able to unlock and select from over 20 classic job classes. To work in with its designation as a horde battle RPG, the game also contained the largest parties in the history of the franchise, and there were opportunities to level and enhance the party. With Square Enix producing small teasers ahead of the game's release, it led to actually a high degree of expectation for what many hoped would be a solid Final Fantasy mobile experience. But when the game launched, those expectations were shattered, and not in a good way.
What amazing ideas do you have buzzing around in your head? Turn your ideas into reality with an Azure free account. Azure gives you everything you need to develop apps across cloud and hybrid environments. Scale workloads, create cloud-connected mobile experiences, and so much more. Start building in the cloud today. Sign up for an Azure free account and discover what you can create.
Sometimes it can feel like there's no way out of treatment-resistant depression. You take one antidepressant after another, and they aren't working for you. It's like you're going in circles. Turn to a different choice. Spravato is the first FDA-approved nasal spray taken with an oral antidepressant for adults with treatment-resistant depression. Spravato can cause sleepiness, feeling disconnected from yourself, your thoughts, space and time, dizziness, fainting, spinning sensation, anxiety, and breathing problems. It's taken under the supervision of a healthcare provider who will monitor you for at least 2 hours after taking Spravato. Don't drive, operate machinery, or perform activities that require full alertness until the next day after a restful sleep. Spravato doesn't prevent suicide, reduce suicidal thoughts or actions, or replace hospitalization if needed. Call your doctor right.
All the Bravest was panned by critics around the world, with some publications even producing content on top of their regular reviews with a specific focus of strongly encouraging fans of the franchise not to purchase the game. Part of the criticism was around the vanilla gameplay, with players being afforded limited control over what actually happened. The plethora of jobs talked about ahead of the game's release all took the exact same actions every turn, and they were each controlled in the same way, by either tapping or swiping the screen. Characters were also auto-equipped and automatically assigned to parties, meaning much of the game played itself. Further to this, critics and players took exception to how much of the game had been developed to focus on the sole objective of making money. Not only was the game a paid-for product, but it also featured in-app purchases. Premium characters revealed in the build-up, such as Cloud Strife, needed to be bought separately. But to make things worse, it wasn't even possible to select a specific premium character for purchase. Players were just given one at random via a gacha system. On top of this, should a party wipe, then the player was given a choice to either wait 3 minutes per character to try again, or pay money to have them resurrected immediately. It led to an outpouring of vitriol against Square Enix as a company, and they were forced to accept that they had made a huge mistake with not only the game itself, but also how they had chosen to market it to consumers. Still, there were 16 people who took the survey that awarded All the Bravest a perfect score. And it's perhaps because of people like those 16 that All the Bravest ended up having a long and eventful life. Even though it was launched towards the start of 2013, the iOS version wasn't discontinued until over a decade later, in July of 2023. In the penultimate spot, we have Final Fantasy Dimensions 2, with a score of 2.37 out of 5, which is noticeably higher than All the Bravest. Dimensions 2 was also the least played game in the entire survey, with only 8.26% of respondents having admitted to checking the game out. What's curious about this particular game, though, is that when the original Dimensions released in 2010, it represented a significant departure from the other mobile games Square Enix had been producing around that time. Instead of focusing on nostalgia to drive its narrative, Dimensions featured an original story and mechanics, and with Takashi Tokita at the helm, the 8-bit and 16-bit Final Fantasy entries were used as inspiration. For its sequel, Tokita decided to mix things up further. Instead of iterating on the original, what became known as Final Fantasy Legends Crystal of Space-Time in Japan ended up being a wholly different experience from its predecessor. As per Final Fantasy tradition, this saw a brand new cast created, as well as a new world, both of which were loosely based on plans intended for the cancelled Chrono Break. Gameplay also bore almost no resemblance to the original game, with the ATB system replaced by a CTB system and the extensive job chain system completely removed. It represented a significant risk, but it was one that paid off, at least in the initial sense, but not in the way they had expected. After being a free-to-play game for 2 years, the developers opted to abandon the model, choosing to launch it as a premium app ahead of its global release. However, because it was a free-to-play game repackaged as a premium app, there were teething problems, as the game wasn't really designed for that new format. For example, the stamina system was still retained. It's perhaps for this reason that Dimensions 2, as a concept, did not stand the test of time, and reviews on the Google Play Store aren't too dissimilar to what was seen within this survey.
Where are you going?
We're going to Svolta.
You cannot go there.
All right.
Just above Dimensions 2, we have Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. It received a score of 2.5 out of 5, with around a third of respondents saying they'd played the game. Now, given the wider appeal of Dissidia as a concept, the low placement of NT shows just how much of a bitter taste this game left on fans. After its successful debut on the PlayStation Portable and a subsequent follow-up that received even more critical praise, the Dissidia franchise was in a strong position. Takeo Kujiraoka and Mitsunori Takahashi therefore put forth a proposal to create a new Dissidia game for the
Alright, the waste is done. Come on. There you go. Waste is done. Boom. Okay. Now, I think we're at the backpack. Right? Where is the backpack? There it is. Okay, we're almost done. Yep, we're literally at the end. This is it. Let's go ahead and check this out while we play the rest of this.
PlayStation Vita. But having believed that the Dissidia brand had been taken as far as it could, Tetsuya Nomura vetoed the plan. It was only later, when Ichiro Hazama noted that the concept of Dissidia may prove successful in Japanese arcades, that Nomura was convinced and gave the green light, but only on the premise that they come up with a new concept for the game that could enable Dissidia to break new ground. With the project approved, Kujiraoka was promoted from his position as battle planning director to director, and Hazama served as producer, and they started drafting plans for this new Dissidia game in 2013. However, due to their experience in the arcade scene, they decided to share responsibilities with a third party, with Team Ninja selected due to their experience working on Dead or Alive. To fulfill Nomura's objective, Dissidia was transitioned from a solo experience to one involving a team. They felt this could add a novel twist on the combat, especially as it was a subtle play on the party mechanic so prevalent throughout the rest of the franchise. To try and make this a smooth transition, the playable cast was nearly identical to what was seen in Dissidia Duodecim, with only a few new characters added, such as Yoshitola from Final Fantasy XIV and Ramza from Final Fantasy Tactics. Upon launch, Dissidia Final Fantasy proved to be a huge success for Square Enix in arcades, with over 3,000 cabinets sold, and due to players being able to save their progress and have it retained when they return, players were encouraged to keep coming back to face new challenges. Expectant fans around the world then geared up for the inevitable home console release, as the game had been produced on a modified PlayStation 4 infrastructure, but they were left waiting for a long time. Dissidia NT, as it became known, didn't release until 2 years after the arcade version. It featured new modes and a story not found in the arcade version. But despite Square Enix attempting to support the game upon launch, Dissidia NT didn't ever take off as intended. The 3 versus 3 combat just didn't translate all that well, and despite numerous modifications being made to the UI, the game wasn't easy to understand for bystanders and failed to attract any kind of viewership on streaming platforms and in local tournament scenes. Dissidia NT later launched on PC and even went free to play in a bid to try and turn around its ailing fortunes, but by early 2021, proactive support for both the arcade version and the home console version was ceased. With Monster Hunter serving as a huge phenomenon across the Japanese portable gaming scene throughout the 2010s, when Square Enix announced a similar game, there ended up being a lot of excitement and intrigue. But based on where we are in the list, you can probably guess that Final Fantasy Explorers failed to stick the landing, with it receiving a score of just 2.57 out of 5. Despite seeing a huge amount of success for Final Fantasy XI and modest success for Crystal Chronicles, Square Enix had seldom produced Final Fantasy experiences that were based around a party setting that consisted of multiple real-world players. Final Fantasy Explorers was designed to scratch that itch, while also separating itself out from the likes of Monster Hunter, God Eater, and Tukiden. To accomplish this, the development team decided to incorporate classic summons and monsters, while also layering over a comprehensive job system. When the basic concept was shown off, and Ifrit was revealed as the first major boss, alongside classic jobs such as Knight, Monk, Black Mage, and White Mage, it felt like Explorers might not just make a name for itself within the Final Fantasy brand, but also the genre as a whole. Unfortunately, when the game was released, it became apparent that the potential had not been realized. Despite introducing a large volume of summons, an exhaustive list of jobs, and even the ability to masquerade as iconic Final Fantasy characters, everything just felt half-baked and vanilla when compared to already established games in the genre. It meant strong initial sales were followed up by diminishing returns once more and more people learned about the quality of the product, and a similar pattern followed its release outside of Japan as Explorers received harsh criticism from Western critics, and many were left to wonder about what might have been. One of the more recent entries in the franchise ended up being one of the most genre-defying, but also ill-fated. Yes, next up we have Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier, which scored 2.58 out of 5, and somewhat surprisingly was at least tried by over 1/5 of all respondents. Following the conclusion of the Final Fantasy 30th Anniversary opening ceremony event, Yoshinori Kitase hinted that numerous projects were being created to support the release of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. But very few predicted that Square Enix were going to produce games like The First Soldier. In early 2021, Square Enix filed a trademark for the phrase The First Soldier. At the time, there were rumblings that this name had reference to Sephiroth, and it led to hope that a brand new game was in production that planned to explore Sephiroth's backstory in more detail. However, just a month later, expectant players were given a rather rude awakening, as Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier was announced as a battle royale action game set in Midgar. The immediate response...
Yeah, I remember that one. Backpack's done. I remember that one. That was the stupidest crap I ever saw. I remember when that was announced. I was like, what the I ain't gonna say it, but yeah, I remember that one. That one was I literally was like, what the heck? Man, yeah, that was a really, like, that made no sense. I remember seeing that. I want to say it was at E3 when I saw it announced. I think it was E3, but I remember seeing it. I was just like, nah. I totally skipped this one. That was a bad announce. Whew. Let's keep going.
This was one of bewilderment. Of all the video game genres to exist, a third-person shooter battle royale was the last anyone expected to be fused with the venerable Final Fantasy brand. A month later, Tetsuya Nomura attempted to explain the decision via an interview with Famitsu, stating that they were attempting to appeal to a new audience. But Nomura also shared that he did not play battle royale games and had no real personal interest in them. Square Enix therefore assigned Shoichi Ichikawa as producer, who was a big fan of the genre, and Nomura noted that this appointment was to ensure that he could still make reckless proposals, knowing that Ichikawa was there to keep them in check. To develop the game and handle its post-launch roadmap, Square Enix then hired a Japanese developer called A-Team. They had worked on many mobile-centric role-playing games, but had never created any kind of action-orientated game before, and they had certainly never created a battle royale experience. They even later noted that The First Soldier was the first time a Japanese developer had ever been placed in charge of a large-scale battle royale project. Needless to say, despite a relatively successful open beta, which highlighted that the game was actually better than expected, and a relatively positive pre-launch which saw over 2 million pre-registrations, The First Soldier suffered from a tumultuous period right after launch. There were horrible server issues, and once players started getting their hands on the game in an uncontrolled manner, cracks began to show. Within weeks of launch, the player base had shrunk so much that bots were making up the majority of the planned 100 players that were meant to feature per round. A-Team continued trying their best to support the game, but even though much of this was cool and led to lots of social media engagement, that did little to help breathe life into the game, and the project ended up being cancelled, with A-Team posting significant losses due to how much the game had underperformed.
I've moved away from financial spreadsheets with QuickBooks. Everything's in one place, and with help from live experts when I need, I feel more confident with my business's finances. It's as if I hired an extra team.
One of the games that inspired the creation of The First Soldier was another collaborative mobile game that became part of a much wider universe, and that game was Final Fantasy XV: A New Empire, which received a marginally better score of 2.59 out of 5. In the build-up to the launch of Final Fantasy XV, as all eyes were focused on its unfortunate delay, there came a surprising announcement. Alongside the copious amounts of content already revealed as part of either Uncovered or the preceding trade shows, Square Enix issued a press release detailing a partnership that had been agreed with Machine Zone that would see them work together to create a Final Fantasy 15 themed mobile MMO. Yosuke Matsuda himself even commented on the partnership, noting that due to Machine Zone's stellar record in the mobile space, which saw them produce games like Game of War and Mobile Strike, that Square Enix were really excited about the partnership.
Look at that. I love that detail. The only thing I wish it would actually, the entire thing was actually getting moved, but I still like that detail. That's pretty nice.
Was high praise indeed. But when Final Fantasy 15 A New Empire launched in June of 2017, the response amongst the gaming community and the fanbase as a whole was quite damning. Final Fantasy 15 and Machine Zone's typical design principles had very little in common, and it felt like a game designed to do nothing more than exploit the Final Fantasy brand.
Alright, I'll come back to this at the end. Let's go ahead and make the shield. Yep, let's finish up with the shield. I think that's it. All that I need with the shield. So I just need 2D. Oh, yep, there it is. That's to put it away. Knock this out. Boom. Oh, that's whack. Jeez, why didn't they add a close? Doesn't make any sense. They should add a close. They should have had the other side. That's stupid that they did that. Is this any? Okay. Alright. Go 3. 3. Boom. Alright, we're done with this one. This one's completed. We're done. And let's go ahead and finish this up. Let's go ahead.
Nonetheless, despite some very harsh criticism and constant vitriol against the game, A New Empire turned out to be a huge financial success for Square Enix and Machine Zone. Just 18 months after launch, it had been downloaded more than 50 million times and generated more than $500 million in revenue. This not only made it one of the highest grossing mobile games of all time, but it also rivaled the financial performance of Final Fantasy 15 itself, and even led to Machine Zone creating a successor called Final Fantasy 15 War for Eos. Rounding out what seems to be a mini trio of badly scoring Final Fantasy mobile games, next we have Mobius Final Fantasy.
Oh,
this scored 2.6 out of 5, just 0.01 higher than A New Empire. And perhaps somewhat surprisingly, given the high profile nature of the game, it was played by less than 1/5 of those who took the survey. Mobius arrived at a time when Square Enix were in their groove when it came to mobile games, and upon the conclusion of the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy, Yoshinori Kitase, who was the head of Business Division 1 at the time, decided to be quite pragmatic. Instead of going headfirst into creating another major home console game, they decided to create their own mobile game that was truly befitting of the values of the franchise. This meant that instead of going down the same route as other business divisions by working with a third-party developer and outsourcing the majority of the work, staff were retained from Lightning Returns and moved onto this new project. Motomo Toriyama served as the game's director, with Kitase serving as producer. They were then assisted by many senior figures, with Kazushige Nojima and Daisuke Watanabe overseeing the scenario, Tetsuya Nomura and Toshiyuki Itahana working on art direction, Takeshi Iwabuchi returned as the lead game designer, and the soundtrack was overseen by the likes of Mitsuto Suzuki and Tsuyoshi Sekito. On paper, it was as much of an all-star cast as could have been assembled within Square Enix at the time, but there were also restrictions on the volume of staff available due to the budget being much smaller. And there was also skepticism as to whether or not they could produce a compelling enough experience despite being restricted to mobile devices. The reality was that Western developers had been producing high-quality, visually stunning games like Infinity Blade for many years, but such games were a rarity in the Japanese mobile marketplace. And the main challenge was whether or not the team could transition effectively away from their proprietary Crystal Tools engine to using something more standard in the Unity engine. From the outset, the team had decided to make Mobius Final Fantasy a modern take on classic elements. This meant the story focused on the Warrior of Light, but to modernize it, the protagonist was a...
Alright. We're done with that one. And actually, I think that's it.
affectionately called Wool. Mobius also moved away from the fast-paced action by adopting a tactical turn-based battle system, and at its core featured the most comprehensive job system ever seen in the franchise. Similar to other games released around the same time, Katase had planned for Mobius to have a global launch, but they realized that ambition created complications.
You know what?
Due to the tight...
Since we're almost done, y'all can watch the rest yourself. I'm going to finish this up, so we're going to go ahead and close all this out. Because we're literally at the end. There's no point. Alright, so let's go ahead and finish this up. Put this right here, right? Wait, oh no, yep. Yep, there's nothing else yet. Boom. Like I said, we're literally at the end, so there's no point. All right. Cool. All right, done. We're done. We're done. We're done. Let's go ahead and start putting crap up. So, okay, C2's cleared. OP1 still has stuff with it, which is crazy. Let's just see. Just wondering. Is there anything else? No. That's it. All right. We made plenty of pretty good time. All right, let's go ahead and put all these up. Human 2 is left on this one. See. Here. Put this here. And boom, we are done. So let's go ahead and do the last build of the year. I'm going to put this all together right now. Go. Let's go legs. Damn, my bad. Arms. Wow. My bad. Back. It's right here. Give me one more second. Okay. Oh. Deal with allergies. Oh crap, whatever. That's just. Alright. And I'm not gonna put this on here. So you're gonna wait to see these. But you'll see them soon. Guarantee when I come back. And you'll see what I mean probably next year. And now put the head. Just push it through. Oh no, I can't push it through. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Can't just push it through. Yep. Boom. And technically this goes on back. Oh, I'll just show you. Oh, which way does it go? Hold on, wait, let me make sure. How does it go on back? Make sure I put it on right. Yep, it is like this. That. Oh, this is really okay. All right. Huh. Okay. Don't. Okay. Okay. We won't put it on back. I'm not gonna even bother. It's fine. But anyways, that's it. So y'all could check it out. She goes on this side. It's that side. Yeah. Yep. I think so. So this is my final build for the year. This is a really good build. And yeah, this will probably be the last time you'll see a live build until next year. So, you know, if you all watch this later, I want to thank y'all for definitely checking this out. Finished up the build. It was great. Whew. Man, it's nice. I'm glad to finish out with the kit I wanted to get this entire year. I got it. Don't worry, I will be coming out with a new list of kits I'm looking forward to getting next year. So I will definitely put that one up. Give me 1 second. But all right, this is the last, like I said, probably the last. Yeah, I will be streaming next week for sure. But like I said, I'm taking it easy at the end of this year because I really need to get things corrected. So this will be, yeah, this will be the last time. Yeah, this is the last build for this year. This is it. And you won't see another one until next year. So with that being, I mean, I'll be back later, but just in case some things happen, because as you know, things keep happening in my life. Always keeps happening in my life. Just in case I'm no, I mean, I'll be able to be streaming tomorrow, but just in case some other crap pops up, I just want to say Happy New Year's, and Happy Holidays. I'm glad that this was the last one. This is like a little, this was the kit I really wanted this entire year, and I got it. This was technically, Deathside was technically the second kit that I ever bought when I was a kid. And so to get it again, improved and looking nicer, I'm pretty happy to end the year with this one. Now again, oops. Okay, there we go. Well, that's had nothing to do with you. I'll be putting these on there. Not on this one, but you'll see them soon. I guarantee you. So stay tuned with the channel. I would say pay attention to shorts as a clue. So, but yeah. But anyways, like I said, I'm going to take it easy this year. Yeah, I'm going to just take it easy this year. Not go so hard and just, you know, finish up the year. Again, December 12th, which gives me about 8 more days. So in 8 more days, I will be doing the first episode showcasing your builds. What is that on my screen? Hold on, what the heck is that? Oh, whatever, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it when I'm done. No, I'm gonna deal with it now. I don't want to wait. I don't like that. What is that? Is that part of it? I don't even know. Alright, whatever. I'll deal with it later. Either way, next year, hopefully, that's the plan. Again, like I said, that's why I'm only going to be live streaming the rest of this year, because I need some time to work on it. So, but again, stay tuned for the 12th. That video will be out on the 12th. Sadly, it won't be the way I wanted it to do, but, you know, it's going to get done. So, that's the goal, to knock that one out. And then after that, just enjoy my holidays, stream the last couple of weeks of December, and then, yeah, and chill until January. So, January, I got a lot to do. And so, the goal is to work for January. So, I hope y'all don't mind me taking time to get things set and settled and put together. So yeah, but with that being said, I do want to thank y'all for definitely checking out the channel, who's been there. Like I said, we just got a new subscriber, and for the new subscribers, please be patient with me. Oh yeah, I will be live streaming, but please be patient. Content will be coming back consistently soon. I have to take this time before I can give you content and get back on schedule. So I'm taking this month to take the time to make sure everything's straight. And yeah, I'm just going to enjoy my holidays. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure to say, hey, thank y'all for checking out the channel. Thank y'all for checking out the live stream. I know the live stream's kind of slow right now, but still, it doesn't matter. Even if it wants to stop by, thanks. I appreciate y'all. Like I said, I do this for the fun of it. You know, I have a good time doing it. It's pretty fun, enjoyable. So again, I want to thank y'all. But yeah, you know, but again, oh yeah, last thing I want to say, I actually got the live stream finally fixed. Yeah, you see that don't even look that good right here. But so now going forward, the heck? Okay, there we go. Sorry. But now going forward, which is the good news, is now I have no issues with seeing chat. What up, Crocky? You see what I'm saying? Man, I wish you came earlier, man. I'm over here testing out this new chat setup. But yeah, I'm about to head out because I gotta get going. But thanks for showing up, Crocky, literally at the end. Oh, it's good to hear from you, man. But yeah, I gotta get going. But yeah, like I said, I would definitely be back streaming next week for sure. Stay tuned for that video. I'm gonna let this play one more time. Like I said, I'm taking a break from doing a lot of video this week. Yep. But yeah, thanks for coming in, Croc. Yeah, I appreciate you, but still, now I know my chat setup worked because I saw you right away. I didn't used to be able to do that. Now I have no problem. That was the whole entire point of this stream, was to test out the chat. So thanks for coming in, Crocky. Literally at the end, but thanks. Chat works. This new screen works. Everything works. So I'll definitely be back streaming next week for sure. Don't know what day, don't know what time, but I'll be playing something. But either way, man, thanks for coming on. Thanks for always checking out the... Yes, you'd helped a lot. But once again, I want to thank y'all. And yeah, I'll be back streaming next week. And yeah, y'all have a good one. Now, I'm going to let this subscribe thing clear out. And then I'm out. Wait a minute, where's my mouse? There it is. Yeah, but yeah, shout out to Crocky. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Because you definitely helped out. All right, y'all have a good one.